Awesome. Awesome. Welcome, Chad. Welcome, everybody. Please share the space. Let's get some people in here. All right. Happy Thursday, everyone. Very, very excited. I am so excited for this episode. We got 3.12 just getting submitted here. We'll get into that, guys. Let's get this intro out of the way. All right, guys. For those who don't know, because we have a lot of people who attend these spaces now that I don't recognize, THORChain is a decentralized exchange that enables you to swap Bitcoin with thousands of other cryptocurrencies. It's all layer one native tokens. There are no bridges or wrapped assets that are needed. And it's all from within your self-custodial wallet. There's no KYC on THORChain. KYC stands for kill your customer. We will never do that. And THORChain is permissionless. THORChain's token is called RUNE. That is spelled RUNE. You do not need to buy or hold RUNE to place a swap on THORChain. The fees generated from your swap is used to buy RUNE, however, and this RUNE is the yield that goes to liquidity pools and nodes. There are no block rewards on THORChain. 100% of the yield is real, and THORChain is deflationary, with 5% of all rewards being swapped to RUNE and burned. And by the way, we're almost 5% to 2 million. We're up to 1,050,000 RUNE burned already, so we're kicking butt. THORChain has another token called TCY, Tango Charlie Yankee. This is like a preferred stock. 10% of the protocol's revenue goes to these token holders. If you deposited crypto into savers or took out a loan on THORChain, make sure to claim your TCY token so you can start collecting this yield, and anyone can buy the TCY token as well. To swap on THORChain, go to swap.thorchain.org. Again, swap.thorchain.org. On the site, new features or functionality can be added all the time, guys. Kenton probably will give an update on it. If you see any bugs whatsoever, please go to that email address on the top of the site and report anything you all, or even just comments, concerns, recommendations, whatever. It all helps. Rujira is building decentralized Binance on THORChain smart contract layer. All kinds of cool stuff is being rolled out. We speak every single DeFi primitive you can imagine, so keep an eye out for that as well. And speaking of Binance, guys, if you hold RUNE on a centralized exchange, withdraw it into self-custody. And you guys have been doing a banger job. Someone posted earlier, we're going down millions and millions of RUNEs off Binance. Well done, everybody. Keep up the pressure. We want to get those tokens off there because they can be used to drive the RUNE price down, right? We want that RUNE in the system. And the best way to do that is to bond your RUNE. You guys, highly recommend going to runebond.com and bond your RUNE. Super easy. You find a node operator, you request a whitelist, and then once you're approved, you bond your RUNE. And right now, I think the APY is like 41%. Hallelujah. Get that yield, baby. Let's go. There's a THORChain community Discord and Telegram you guys can join to learn all about THORChain, make lots of friends. To find the links, go to @Thor, THOR, community, all one word, @Thor community account on X. Guys, one more time, repost a space. If you're listening to the recording, please share it. There's so many good things we're going to talk about today. I'm so excited. And remember, if you are new to this space, we do our best to explain things no matter how experienced or new you are. So there will be something for here. And if you have any questions, please, you can reach out to the profiles that are speaking today. We will gladly answer them. One thing that we haven't been doing, guys, we haven't been introducing ourselves. And again, we have people that a lot of people listen to the recording of this who don't know who we are. So I'll go ahead and start. My name's Denny. My other account is Patriot Sounds. I've been educating on THORChain for the last 5 years. Love doing spaces, love talking about it. I'll kick it to you, Kenton, and then we'll go to Chad, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kenton Ralph Toes. I'm a node operator, bond provider on THORChain. I have a fund that invests in RUNE and runs nodes on THORChain, the UShare RUNE Fund. And then I guess recently too, I've involved in running the THORChain marketing team, and got that going. So we can talk about that a bit later, but I'll pass it on to Chad, let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, my name is Chad Barraford. I am the technical co-founder of THORChain back in the day. Last time I looked, which has been a while, so I don't know if it's changed, but last time I looked, I contributed more than half of the code in the THORChain code base. So I've been, a strong contributor for a very long period of time. And I'm here just to answer questions, give updates. Anybody wants to ask me anything, you can ask me anything.
That's so true. I remember when you took a break, Chad, for personal reasons. I was so impressed by the chart of just seeing it looked like a rug honestly, when it came to the commits of code to THORChain. So you are a coding savage, bro. I can't even understand how you do it. You're an animal. Okay. Kenton, I guess maybe we'll give a quick marketing upgrade. Or do you want to say something, Chad? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, people can, can criticize me about some things, and maybe I might even agree with them on some of those things. But I think one thing people cannot criticize me on is that I ship. Like, I get things done. I release new features. I push the envelope. I don't think anybody can really challenge me on that one.
I have the stupidest look on my face. That's so true, man. You are just a friggin' cocaine coding savage, bro. 100%. No one can talk shit on you for that reason. Go ahead, Kenton. I'll kick you up for the marketing and we'll get right into it.
Yeah, no, it's really good to have Chad back. It's awesome. It's exciting. Yeah, so when we start with the front end, the swap interface, if you guys heard me, I think it was on Saturday, I said that the DEX aggregation and new wallets should be added here soon. It's not, I don't see it yet. I haven't actually talked to the guys this week, but I have a meeting with them this evening, because we're on different time zones. So I'll talk to them this evening, see what's going on. I assume they're going to tell me again any day now, type thing. But that's the biggest hurdle. Getting the DEX aggregation done is like that. They've been working on that for several weeks. Once they get that done and going, then the other features should be more smoothly, easier to get out. So yeah, so just keep an eye on the site that'll be done. And by other features, I mean, like, bond rune, depositing and withdrawing from pools. We have limit orders, right? Memoless is coming out. I'm sure maybe we'll talk about that later. The ability to enter in, trades without connecting your wallet. All those things will come on the site. From the marketing front, things are moving forward. We're starting to hire providers and pay people now. So we got an SEO agency, got them going. Hopefully we're going to settle on a graphic design company here soon to redo the website. And then, Reggie's, you guys, if you see all that posting about Artemis, getting THORChain on that research platform, Reggie's reached out to them to start that process, where he's supposed to be setting up a call here with Masari soon to get like a THORChain dashboard there. So that'll probably be, the next thing he starts focusing more on is trying to get THORChain these research platforms. Yeah, things are starting to move now. It took us a few weeks, right, to find somebody, and then it took him a few weeks to, get his feet wet, get his hands dirty in THORChain, understand what's going on and whatnot. So he's come up to speed pretty good here. So we're gonna start moving. We're already trying to push forward like a pay-per-view campaign on the main Twitter account, where we'll start sending out, pushing out to people that the swap interface is live. Want to keep it more small and contained, just trying to reach like the THORChain audience to start. And if you're wondering why, like, I kind of want to take it a bit slow, is it like Patriot said, we're still ironing out bugs. Well, I don't know. I think any bugs last few weeks should be fixed by now. But especially as we add new features, add the DEX segregation, like making sure it all works, for adding new wallets, make sure it all works. And we have like our friends and family using the interface, and just make sure everything's smooth before we really start, pushing it out to everyone, to the world. Because in my opinion, the last thing we want to do is just mass promote this and have people come use it and it's half finished. Because we only get one chance for a first impression, and we spend all that money and time to get that first impression, only for the turn people off or piss them off. Like, I'd rather be done more. And whereas if we keep it in the family, family and friends to THORChain, you guys are going to be more patient with us on, hey, this needs to be fixed, or what about that? So consider these next, like, the rest of this year, basically like a soft opening for the interface. Like, we want people to use it. It works. Like, use it all you want. There's no affiliate fees. It just, there still could be some things we don't know doesn't work, or just doesn't have the features that you expect it to have. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Absolutely. And guys, if you have any friends or anyone in real life, remember, always take any opportunity you can to promote THORChain. I do it all the time, and I know you guys have a lot of crypto friends, or maybe some of you don't, but always look for any opportunity to push THORChain. That's what I do. So thank you for the update, Kenton. That's awesome. Well, this is a very exciting space because 3.12 just got pushed. I think it was yesterday. Sorry if I got that wrong. Chad, I guess I'll kick it to you. Do you want to go ahead and like break it down a little bit? How exciting this is?
Yeah, it's actually pretty exciting. We pushed out the release. I think it was like I don't know what day it was, a couple days ago, but it's not going to switch over until I think the 4th. I think on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, next week. And with 312 comes out like a bunch of different things. Kind of the biggest meat of it, the most exciting parts of it are really primarily two things. One is it's fixing some bugs around the limit swaps. We're gonna flip that back on, and hopefully it'll be good at that point. And then the other major thing was memoless is in 312. It's been tested on StageNet. Seems like it's really good. I know that Familiar Cow has spent a decent amount of time building like an open source like web server so that wallet providers could use that code to create memoless memos on THORChain's blockchain, so forth and so on. So that's going to be going next week. We're going to have access to memoless, which is going to be a big thing, and I'm really excited, especially for Kenton and his wallet, his UI, not his wallet, his UI rather, to start utilizing that because it's going to make it so much faster, easier, and less of a burden for users to be able to swap and trade on THORChain.
Okay, I'm break that down a little bit. So the thing that Cow is building, can we break down a little bit? Because one thing I'm so excited about memoless, because I have people that really want this. They want memoless so they can add directly to their own UI. Is this something that someone who's maybe not technically savvy can plug this in on their website, or is this really for other teams, other builders when it comes to sophistication?
Um, it's a little bit of both. So, Cow has built something where if you wanted to provide memoless trades on your website, somebody can input their information. So it'd be like, okay, I have Bitcoin, and I'm trying to get Ether, and I want this Ether address to receive it, and I want this trade target, and I like the configuration or the specs of the swap you want to make, and then the code that Cow has created will basically take that information, convert that into an actual like memo field, and then register that memo on the THORChain blockchain, and then come back to you with instructions on how to actually execute your swap. What's the transaction you have to make to make it actually really happen. Oftentimes that'll probably just be like a QR code you can just scan with your phone, and that will hook into Trust Wallet or one of these kind of wallet providers, and it'll just automatically populate it with the right address, the right amount, blah blah blah, all those things. The second part, which I think was what you're kind of poking at, is how do I embed a swap interface into my UI? So say I'm like CoinGecko.com, for example, right? Not really a trading interface in a general speak. It's more of a price lookup slash a bunch of other things. And could they hook into this and just with a copy and paste? Yes, you could. The caveat is somebody needs to run the API thing that Familiar Cow was just built, because that's the thing that has to spend some Rune tokens to register your memo on the blockchain. And so you would have to, partner with them in some way or shape or form. I use the word partner somewhat fairly loosely because it's probably not even that hard, to be honest with you. You might even be able to do it without even talking to Cow or Unstoppable Wallet or whoever it is that's going to be implementing this, or maybe it's Nine Rails might do it. Who knows? But that's the second part. So day one, we'll have the feature out. Cow's code is out there for wallets like Kenton to integrate with directly. Phase two would be building like an iframe is a technical term, but like a way of just kind of like copying and pasting a swap interface onto your website without actually needing to code at all.
Okay, so all right, memoless, it goes live, right? And let's say we got Pragmatic Monkey in the audience. Let's say their lending system is done, right? Does memoless already capture new primitives the moment they're pushed by the Ruggierian team, or does there need to be an update on the THORChain side to change something on Memless so it can support that? If that makes sense. I hope I'm describing myself.
Yeah, no, Memos works with any and all memos, even including ones that are in the future. So you could use Memolist to do some really big, complicated thing on the app layer if you wanted to, because sometimes there's more complicated interfaces where they have more data they need to collect in order to do, a loan or whatever it is that's happening. You kind of need more data to kind of fit. So like for a blockchain like Bitcoin, where you only have 80 bytes, you may not even have enough, bytes in a memo, even on Bitcoin's blockchain, to be able to do something on app layer directly in a single transaction. Or DEX aggregation is another example where you get to append a bunch of different data after you do your actual swap that you're trying to execute on. So you can use a memo for any arbitrary purpose. You could use it to add liquidity, you could use it to remove liquidity, you could use it to do swaps, you could use it to do bonding activity, not bonding actually, you don't need memos for that. But anyways, like you could do a lot of things, anything actually in now and into the future.
Very cool. And
Chad,
go ahead, Kenton.
sorry. Chad, you said you can't do memoless to bond Rune, or you don't need it, or
it's more like it doesn't make sense to, just because you could, like, theoretically you could do that and it would work. But in order to bond Rune, you have to use Rune to do it. And so you already have, Rune in your wallet to be able to just transact directly. Like, it doesn't give you anything better to do it via Memless. You could, in theory, if you really, really wanted to, have at it, but it doesn't make sense to register a memo and then transfer some, Rune. Like, it's adding an extra step to the entire process. That just seems unnecessary.
I'm just trying to think like Fireblocks, for example. I know they support Rune, but you can't bond your Rune through Fireblocks because they have an enabled message deposit or something like that. So
so in that case, if you're in a kind of a wacky situation like that where you're not really holding the Rune, but somebody else is, and you want to do a bond through Fireblocks, like that might be possible. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, because that would be interesting. Or same with like I'm just trying to think like, somebody has Rune in a wallet, it's always trying to get them to connect to a certain interface to bond their Rune. But if it's memoless, I'm wondering if that would make the whole process easier, simpler.
Yeah.
Think,
that maybe it would be easier and simpler in that instance. I have to think. I like to look at the code again, because it's really designed for like external assets to THORChain, for like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and whatnot. Not really designed to be used with Rune. But I have to go through the code base to figure out whether it actually would support Memless when using a native asset like Rune. I have to go look it up.
Because same thing still applies. Like somebody, they want to bond their Rune, they still have to connect their wallet to a website to do it, right?
Correct.
And they may not want to do that, right?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Most of the wallets that have Rune have the capability of bonding, whatever, I think. But that said, you make a valid point, and if it doesn't support it now, then we can totally add that, in another,
And I'm speaking now. I'm going to speak as an investor. So like with my fund, right, I have to do self custody because like Fireblocks, I can't stake through them, right? And so all the major custodians use Fireblocks. I know for DeFi, they support bonding on Rune, staking on Rune, but not all. A lot of custodians don't use for DeFi. Fireblocks is kind of like the main one, right? And so, if we want to make Rune more attractive for institutional investors, like they're all using Fireblocks, right? They're all using custodians, right? And so, if Fireblocks, apparently, I don't know, they've been actually just emailed them yesterday to follow up. But like I talked to them, I know Nine Rounds have been talking to them. I talked to them years ago. They said they were working on it. I don't know what the holdup is, whether they're not doing it. Maybe just not enough demand. I don't know. But but the memoless, being able to memoless bond Rune would be a nice workaround. So I could still use a custodian with Fireblocks, and then memoless bond my Rune to them.
Yeah, I'll take like an action item, offline to look into this, see if it's. Off the top of my head, I don't think it's supported right now, from memory. But I'll take an action item offline to look into it, and if it's not supported, I will making it supported.
Cool. Cool. Sorry, Patriot, go ahead.
No, I actually have a question for you, Kenton. By the way, that was a banger question. Thank you for asking this. I didn't even think about that. So okay, memless, right? I know, Kenton, with Scorch and some others, we had talked about making this memless interface generator. And shout out to Mr. Zaman, and he is an XRP. And I know there's a lot of people on the XRP side who are very excited about this. So since they're here, I'd love to talk about this. Are we still talking with Scorch? Like, what's that look like? Because I am so excited for that, Kenton, to get it where people can make, basically just plug it into their interface when we get memless.
Well, sounds like Cal created something halfway to that.
Right.
But yeah, that's still the plan. We want to, like, the swap interface all open source, right? So if anybody's have it, then basically will go copy it and go create their own one. But so that's what we want. Like, but that's going to be like, that's like, I guess, lower priority for us to get that done. But we want people to be able to fork the front end. So either you incorporate memless swaps into your website, and or incorporate the Connect wallet part, right? And you have it like a widget where it just shows up in like a window on your website, or maybe you actually clone THORChain's entire site and you create your own URL and you just have like a clone of THORChain's swap site with put your logo on it type thing. We want to do that. We want to get to that point where we can do it so that anyone can just spin up and create their own front end, put their own brand, their own name on it, and then tack on their own affiliate fee if they want, or not. Right, it's up to them. But it's for us, for the front end devs, that's a lower priority to get that done. That's like the last thing we're working on.
Is Scorch part of the front end devs too, or is he not?
No, he's on the marketing team side.
Oh, okay,
so the front end devs, I'm working with the Unstoppable wallet guys, and so it's all them, the Unstoppable wallet guys, and then yeah.
We might actually need to support like a double affiliate fee in a sense, because if you copy and paste, use this, say Unstoppable wallet guys create a UI to swap whatever, and then they have a little like copy and paste thing where you can embed their wallet in your web page, and we want to incentivize people to do that, to put it in their web page. But we also need to make sure that Unstoppable wallet people also get paid, because they're running infrastructure for this whole thing to work, because they're the ones paying the Rune fee to register these memos. So it's almost like you're going to have like two layers of affiliate fees, one for Unstoppable wallet and then one for Patriots random website.com or whatever it is. Not that that's like critically important, but it's something to maybe we should spend some time thinking about.
Yeah, well, I gotta be honest. I have to think that through. So like, so any front end offering the memless, the memless is dialed back for people and for myself. So when somebody goes to the website to create a memless transaction, the website needs to connect to THORChain. And to do that, it's got to pay the 0.02 Rune fee to basically register that transaction on THORChain, so that when me, the user, goes to send in the trade, THORChain knows what it is, where it's coming from. And so we need to pay that 0.02 Rune transaction fee to get the message to THORChain. And it's the website or the interface that's got to pay that 0.02 Rune fee.
In some way, shape, or form, yeah. So what you might do, like maybe the easiest way to do it is that if you have a partner with some website.com, then you create a new affiliate kind of Thor name, whatever you want to call it, and you have a revenue share. So maybe it's like 50-50 or 80-20 or whatever it is, so that that would be a trusted scenario where they trust you as an Unstoppable wallet will give them 20% of the revenue of it, or 80% or whatever the however you want to divvy it up. And that way both people get paid out, what's owed to them. But that would be in that how it would work today in today's model. It would be a semi-trusted thing, and then maybe that's okay in this particular instance because it is a centralized, wallet in one case and a centralized website in another case. So I don't think you really need trustless necessarily in that particular circumstance, but we could make some changes to the code so that it would support like some sort of like deviation of the fees between two entities or two wallets.
So that 0.02 rune, that just goes into system income, right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
could we set it up that like the reserve pays for that 0.02 rune, but then it just goes back to itself?
Yes.
And so it's like it's just this
Yes.
loop. Then we don't have to worry about anyone paying, and it's all kind of done automatically.
Yeah, you could do that. The negative is it basically what you're effectively doing in that situation is you're making this specific type of transaction a free transaction or a gasless transaction. And you can do that, and other blockchains have done. Like I think Osmosis was gasless for a while. Maybe it still is. I don't even know anymore. But you could do that. But the problem is that you open up yourself for some form of attack. So then somebody could like DOS it basically and just hit tons of transactions to register random bullcrap memos, and then just like flood the system in that kind of way. So you'd have to figure out another way, some alternate methodology of protecting against malicious attacks. And maybe that would be that, it's free for the first, 5 memoless transactions of this particular block or 10 memoless of this particular block. And then after that, the fee comes back, but also increases with each, however quantity of memless registrations are happening in a particular block. That's one way to do it. I'm sure there's a handful of others, but you'd have to think of another way of protecting the protocol from a DOS.
What about okay, so if I'm a website, I've got a wallet, I've got 100 rune in it to pay these 0.02 rune fees. The attacker, they still don't have to have any rune to enter in thousands of memoless transactions on the website, and it'll just drain that wallet to zero.
Yep.
So that so it's up to the website to protect itself from these attackers, from these malicious transactions being created.
We've talked about different ways of doing this. Like a simpler way of doing it, a very easy way, is just like limiting based upon IP address. So any IP address that's visiting your website, they only get, X number of memos per 5 minutes or whatever the number might be. That's a very easy limitation, but it's also fairly easy to get around because you can just like spin a bunch of servers on different IP addresses and just flood the zone, so to speak. Another way of doing it we've talked about is basically implementing proof of work on this, so that it's like you're replicating the same mining concept of Bitcoin, even the same mathematics, I believe. And you would, have some difficulty, like you have a mining difficulty, how much processing power it takes to come up with the answer or whatever. And the difficulty would be very, very small. So like even if your laptop at home or your phone, whatever, could figure out a solution within a second or 2 seconds, something like this. But then like as more and more registrations happen, the difficulty increases. So then instead of being 1 second, it's now 2 seconds, it's now 5 seconds, it's now 30 seconds, it's now 5 minutes, whatever it is, so that if there was an attack, the computational resources required increases as more memos are registered.
That's going to be to see how it goes. If you have to go down that route type thing, like it's in your back pocket, that could be.
Yeah. So I think that like what should happen initially, and is that like, when we set up this wallet that's doing, memoless registrations for your wallet, whatever, we're probably just going to put in like 100 rune in it. You know what I mean? 500 rune, something very small. And if somebody wants to attack it, like whatever, they just burn through like 100 rune, like no big deal. But then we can spend more time on that kind of stuff, when the moment needs it, rather than doing it, preemptively. I think it's more important just to get the feature launched. It doesn't have to be perfect on day one. It can just get the basic functionality working. We can always iterate and add more things, tomorrow.
So if a website does notice that they're getting all these malicious, memoless transactions created, what can the website do to try and prevent that?
Yeah, the website should either put up like rate limiting based upon IP address. They could rate limit, how many memos they want to register per block. They could do that. They could do the, proof of work, Bitcoin mining concepts that I just spoke about a moment ago. There's a bunch of different things you can do. And some of these things are easy technically, and some of these things are more difficult technically, and some of these things are more protective or less protective. It's up to the individual kind of UI to figure out what they think is the best strategy for them.
Oh, okay, so all those things that can be done at the protocol level can also be done at the UI level, at the website level.
Yeah, all those things, those examples are all done on the website level or the wallet level, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
If you want to do this on the protocol level, that would be a different thing. That would go back to the idea of, hey, these transactions are free. They don't cost 0.02 Rune. So now it's up to the protocol to protect itself from a denial of service attack or some flood the zone attack, so to speak. And that would be just limiting the number of memos that came registered per block, or it could be, I don't know. There's a handful of different ideas you could do in that regard, and one or two of those in the future. But for right now, let's just get the V1 out the door and adjust as we need to.
Okay, so the 0.02 Rune per transaction, that's how the network is protecting itself. In theory, THORChain would love people to create millions of transactions because we're collecting 0.02 Rune. And
yes.
Okay, and then
there's even a configuration on the mirror in the system where we could add, instead of being 0.02 Rune, it could be 1 Rune, or it could be 10 Rune. There's a configuration in there that would allow us to increase that number. If we felt we wanted to charge more for that purpose, we could, right? But right now it's just 0.02.
Can it be decreased too?
No, not really decreased, because 0.02 is that's just like the default, gas that it costs to do almost any transaction on THORChain, I believe. And it probably wouldn't make sense to. Well, I mean, you could turn it off. You have to go into the, I think it's called the ant handler to do that, I think, or something like this. We could look into that if we really wanted to turn it off. We could. I just would think we would want to find some other strategy of protecting from a denial of service attack.
Got it. Okay, so all the protections you're talking about, that'll be done at the website level.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. So for now, the best thing a website can do is just have a unique Rune wallet with 50 or 100 Rune in it type thing, and just top it up as you need. And if it gets drained, it gets drained, and then deal with it afterwards.
Yeah, I wouldn't put 1 million Rune in a wallet and then set it like that. Keep it like a hot wallet. Not that much funds in there. 100 Rune in there. You can top it up every day or every week or whatever you want to do. Just so your risk is very, very low for something really bad to happen.
Cool. Patriot, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's just my understanding is not there. So you make a memoless interface generator. You need 0.02 Rune. And then so this generator goes out. Say Mr. Zaman grabs it, puts it on his website. But the interface generator itself is charging a small fee for that person to use that generator. So I don't understand the DDoS attack if, say, on Mr. Zaman's side, someone tries to do the spam attack, but they're getting charged fees to, I don't know. Maybe I'm not thinking about it correctly. Maybe you can clear my confusion there, Chad. Like, you understand what I'm trying to say? How does that?
Yeah. So so Unstoppable Wallet is going to be running this memoless thing, and they're going to run their own kind of server that registers memos and has its own private key with 100 Rune in there, whatever. They're the ones that are wearing the risk. If I have some other website called chadscoolwebsite.com and I embed your thing on mine, your swap interface on mine, I'm not wearing any risk in that scenario because people are going to my website, but they're using your wallet to register for these, memberless transactions. So you're still the one that's holding all the kind of like that's carrying all the risk in the situation. For me, I'm not doing anything. I'm just copying and pasting something onto my website. I don't have to run any additional infrastructure. I don't have to have a even own a single rune to my name. I just copy and paste it, and then it just kind of works, kind of in the background without me doing anything or participating in anything or theoretically even speaking to a unstoppable wallet in some scenarios. So I'm not taking on any risk in that scenario on chadscoolwebsite.com, but Unstoppable Wallet is taking on all the risk of a potential DOS.
Okay, so this interface generator, it could be designed in a way, as you guys were saying, that we could protect against this. But I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we're at V1 right now. But I was just trying to construct my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll work it out over time, I'm sure. And as people use the system, we'll find out, what works and what doesn't work. And when we, 6 months from now, we're going to have just more information to make a more informed decision about what the best is for wallets, for interfaces, and whatever else. I mean, maybe we'll go back to because in the end, somebody has to protect the system from a denial of service attack. Like something has to do it somewhere. In the current situation, it is the UI that's taking on the responsibility and the risk of that. But tomorrow, it could be the protocol, right? We could figure out a way to do it on the protocol level instead of doing it on the UI, on an individual UI level. But that's up for another more discussion.
I think if people are forking the interface, put on their own website, I don't think it's too much to ask them to get their own Rune wallet and top it up with 100 Rune type thing.
That's the trade-off, though. So you could make that argument. That's a very fair argument, right? But in order to do that, I have to, get a wallet. I have to acquire some Rune, throw it in there, figure out how to do all that. I have to set up some web server that has an API that will, run this wallet and register memos. And, I have to maintain those servers, make sure they're up, all the time, not offline or whatever. So it puts a lot of effort, onerous on me on chadscoolwebsite.com to do all that, right? And maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want, chadscoolwebsite.com and people like me to, be able to embed swapping on the interface without doing fuck all work, right? And then that's just kind of spread our friggin' UI all over the place across the internet. So people are just trading, in thousands of locations. Maybe that's a more strategic notion, right? And then the onerous of running infrastructure, having a wallet, topping that wallet up, registering memos, all that stuff as comes from a more aligned person like Kenton, for example, who's more technical savvy, more kind of invested into our ecosystem, and doesn't really and cares about the success of the protocol. To the chadscoolwebsite.com person, maybe they don't really care about Rune. They don't really care about X, Y, and Z. They're just like, hey, I just think it'd be kind of cool if somebody could swap on my website, which might be CoinGecko.com and might be something else.com, whatever it is, and they can trade my asset on THORChain without me really needing to set up all this extra cost, time, and infrastructure, and all this monitoring and alerting and whatever all that is, and just keep it dead simple where you could just copy and paste and then you're done. And now people can trade and buy your token on mytoken.com, whatever new meme token that's getting launched or whatever. You can just create an interface on your homepage. Hey, buy my meme token, and then it's just a simple interface that there you go, and you can just buy it without me actually needing to run any additional infrastructure or learn anything at all.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, I think it should be like that. But you're saying if it is that easy to copy and paste, then if we're I'm the host website that everyone's copying and pasting. Everyone's copying and pasting my Rune wallet to pay that 0.02 Rune fee per transaction. They wouldn't be attaching their own wallet to it. They'd just be copying mine.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, if this person wants to copy and paste the interface, and they want to charge an affiliate fee, they would need their Rune address and to somewhere to send the fees to, right? So
Not necessarily, because fees can be collected in almost any asset you want. They can be collected in USDC if you want.
okay. Okay, well, this is something we'll definitely have to figure out. But in my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, we got to make it as easy as possible for people to copy and paste into their site to implement.
Yes. My thinking is, yes, we're going to want to make it as easy as possible and as low cognitive load on the person to copy and paste it into the website, and so that way it gets put on as many websites as as possible, right? The lower the cognitive load or the technical load or the cost of operation, any of those things, the lower we make those things, the more websites that in theory this thing would be copied and pasted on top of, and then you just get the highest volume, especially as you as in the provider of this swapping interface. You want this thing copied to as many websites as possible, because the more they get copied, the more fees that you collect as the wallet interface or the provider of that UI. So you want people to make it as easy as possible so that they can produce as much fees for you as possible.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. Simple, complexity abstraction. That's why I love this community. We hasn't even technically gone live yet, and we're already thinking about problems. there's something different about us, you guys. Okay, so I think we did the memoless thing a little. Well, that was great. Awesome community. Let's go to limit swaps, Chad. So I think you said it's gonna go the 4th, that everything's going live on the 4th. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, on the 4th, I think. V 312.
Okay, so maybe a little reminder here, because it's been a few spaces. The community, everyone's listening right now. They're gonna be listening to recording. Like, we got the bug, we fixed it. How can people look out for bugs or look out for issues with limit swaps? Like, what would you ask them to look out for, just in case?
I don't think I have anything specific, but just if anything happens that looks weird or blah blah blah, reach out to me in like a DM would be probably be best, and just ask me if this looks right or doesn't look right or whatever. And if there's anything significant, like funds are missing or whatever, that's obviously a different case. Obviously, want to handle that much quicker, but just send a DM to myself or and to get some feedback.
And this will be primarily used by arbitragers, right?
Yeah, I think my goal is that on day one, it's primarily used for arbitrage. That's the easiest and fastest kind of user base to address with this, because as an ARB bot, if you have more than one ARB bot on the network, they are in competition with each other, right? They want to outdo each other to make sure that they get the ARB opportunity. And the network is designed in a way that they collect, the way they compete with each other is basically through whoever wants to collect less in fees is the one that gets prioritized. And with this new methodology of arbitrage, they'll inherently beat somebody who's using kind of the way we arbitrage today, which is a more passive way of going on it. So they will be the first ones to probably utilize this feature more than anybody else. Going downstream, as different UIs, whether that be, Unstoppable Wallet, or that be THORSwap, whether that be, I saw Leodex is in the audience here, so maybe that's Leodex. Like, they can start building a more, advanced swapping interface meant for traders rather than swappers, where you have like, trading view charts and orders and order book walls and all that kind of more complicated, more standard kind of user interface you see when you do like pro trading on Kraken or Binance or Coinbase, whatever, and give them more complicated interfaces with those. But that takes time to build those interfaces, and you're not going to just do it tomorrow. It's going to take a couple months, 2 to 4 months, I'm guessing, to build an interface like that. So I think on day one we'll see arbitrage using it fairly quickly because they're incentivized to do so. And then we'll see more advanced UIs in the next few months.
When we first came out with the limit swaps, did arbitragers take it up pretty rapidly. I don't remember there being a lot of swaps, or did we just do a few swaps? We saw a bug and then we pause it. How did that work out?
There was somebody that reached out to me who it sounded like they were an arbitrage person, and they were trying to learn the interface and trying to kind of wrap their heads around, and they were kind of throwing some like test transactions, so to speak, at the protocol to kind of get to know it, get familiar with it. And so there is interest there for sure. But I would imagine it would take, a week or 2 weeks, no more than a month, for them to kind of migrate to this new methodology of arbitrage.
Got it. On X, I think it was X. I believe it was you, Chad, and maybe someone, Loki. I think you guys were having a conversation. I don't remember the exact details, forgive me, but it was related to limit swaps and the outbound queue, and maybe limit swaps can be, assuming everything's safe, blah blah blah. That can be used to circumnavigate the outbound queue. Is that a thing, or maybe I'm misremembering? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I talked to somebody named Loki in Discord about this. We had a little back and forth. I think there was a little bit of miscommunication or misunderstanding of what limit swaps really are and how they function, and a presumption that I think that person was making a presumption that if I'm trading X and you're trading Y, and we're both trying to, go in the opposite direction, I'm trying to get your Y, you're trying to get my X, because we're both trading against each other, then we don't need to worry about security in the traditional sense. We can just send the outbound like now, and rather than waiting for the outbound queue. But that's not really how that works per se, because the example I gave in Discord was that, like, if I trick the protocol, I gave it some fake ether, and somehow I tricked the protocol that this is ether tokens, but it's actually some bull crap token. Then that doesn't really mitigate that kind of scenario. So I don't see the outbound queue being treated differently for limit swaps versus just regular market swaps personally, but I'm happy to have more discussions as somebody who does.
Okay, interesting. Very good. Did you have anything on limit swaps, Kenton? I think I got my curiosity out.
No, that's good. I really looking forward to it. I'm fingers crossed that we get a huge lift in liquidity and really improves the spreads and quotes we're getting. I know I can't remember if he said this publicly or privately, so I won't. Maybe I shouldn't dox him. I don't know, but somebody from some swap kit was telling. Pretty sure he's saying this in the Discord, that if we with limit orders on THORChain, it should dramatically improve our quotes and could potentially double the volume we get. Pretty sure it's Gmo saying this in the Discord like a few months ago. So looking to see if he's right. Looking forward to it. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. Obviously, we'll find out in the coming months. But I think in theory, the pools should be a bit stickier in their price and not sway as much. That's because the pool has to sway in order for an arbitrage bot to push the sway back to center, right? So you inherently, by definition, the price has to be incorrect in order for it to be corrected, right? And if the pool price is incorrect, the swap, quote is either going to work in your favor. You're actually going to get a better quote because you're swapping in the other direction, or you're swapping in the same direction and you're going to get a worse quote, right? But if you have a more of a proactive way of arbitraging the pools, that the pool doesn't really move out of price in order for it to be arbitraged, then the pool price should be stickier in theory,
I'm not sure if I followed that. So like the user, when the user gets a quote, the quotes are being pulled from the pools. And so, okay, so then the user will place a trade. That'll move the pool in one direction, up or down. The arbitrager will come in with his limit orders to fix it. So that's what you mean by stickier, like the pool price to just, like as soon as the pool price moves, a limit order will be there
Yes.
to fix it.
Right. The pool price in theory, like, it wouldn't even really move because because this is all happening like within the same block, right? So by the end, when the block starts and when the block ends, the pool price in theory, obviously there's like caveats galore to this. But in theory, the pull price wouldn't even really move much at all, because as soon as it moved, it would move back before the block even ended. Right, it all happens within the same block. So from the external way, when you're like querying the network for a quote, you're always quoting for theoretically the correct price, because the price never really skews off. Because in the current situation, the price has to skew off.
Oh,
Back
Chad, you cut
towards
it.
correct.
Was that just me, or
Oh,
did Chad cut out for
He cut
everybody
out
else?
for a second. Yeah, last 10 seconds, Chad. We lost you. Maybe you can repeat that.
Let's see if I can do that.
Sorry, it was you're talking about the skew of the price.
Yeah. So in the current situation before limit swaps, the trades happen against the pool.
Happening again. Shit.
So it always goes, right?
Am I,
We can hear you now.
Yeah. Whatever you're supposed to say, that the world does not want it to be said. Try again, Chad.
even your voices are sounding weird to me. I don't know if it's just me or the larger audience. I'm just going to test my Wi-Fi real quick. I should be pretty good.
Well, you're good now. We can hear you
That's
testing and talking now. But
Okay.
as soon as you get into your explanation, it goes, yeah.
Yeah.
X is rugging me over here.
Right.
I'll give it one more try. Hopefully X won't screw me over again. But in the normal situation, in the current situation, before limit swaps, when somebody makes a trade, they push the price, up or down, depending upon which direction they're going. They're making the pool price incorrect by making the trade. That's at the end of block one. That's what happens. The block is actually, the pool price is slightly incorrect, right? And then in block number two, some arbitrage bot says, oh, hey, this price is, incorrect, whatever. There's a little opportunity to make a little bit of money. I'm going to swap in the opposite direction to push the price back to the correct price. So by the end of the third block, in theory, where this is all happening in single blocks, but streaming swaps to make it more complicated. By the third block, the price is back to where it was. So you have the correct price on block one, incorrect price on block two, and then in theory, you have the correct price on block three. So if you happen to query the protocol in block two to get a quote, you're quoting the incorrect price in effect, right? And so but it could be incorrect in the direction that works out for you. Like you could get a better price in that scenario, depending which direction you're swapping in that pool. But it could be that you get a worse price, right? And so by having limit swaps, you never really have a block where the price is incorrect. So every time you quote your swap, you should, in theory, get always the correct price of Bitcoin rather than some off, slightly more or slightly less price. I'm speaking in generalities. I'm simplifying a very, very complicated thing that's dependent upon whether or not arbs are there, whether they're, whether, a bunch of things are happening as they should. So it's not going to be true in all cases and circumstances, but at a high level of an overview kind of mentality, in theory, the quotes should be more accurate and therefore should give us, better pricing.
And with them, go ahead, Kenton.
I think that was great. And I totally appreciate in theory, there's lots of other things that can affect that. And when you say more accurate, you mean, I assume you mean more in line with all the other major markets out there, that everybody should be quoting pretty darn close the same.
Right. Correct.
Kenton, this is freaking me out a little bit, because this actually is something that you said years ago when you made your introduction video into THORChain, and you talked about the depth of the pool. And what this is reminding me of, maybe I'm thinking about this too deeply, but with Ruggiero, we're going to have, let's just, think ahead, guys. We're really crushing it. We have lots of swap volume, billions of swap volume, and the pools are very stable, where THORChain becomes the oracle, right? It becomes the center, that it becomes the price which the market is largely built around. That maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much, but that's what kind of reminds me. That's what it feels like. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that was, if THORChain becomes the biggest exchange in the world, they become the price setter,
Right.
Which is so right, like basically Binance, they're the biggest exchange in the world, so they set the price of Bitcoin, right? I believe, Chad, you've talked like this too, that that's what we're trying to build here. we're trying to make THORChain the biggest exchange in the world, and if so, it'll set the price for Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about in the past, kind of in theory. And I think it's possible to happen in one way and not possible in another. So, for example, like, Binance is a centralized exchange. They have a very high cost of operation. They have to make a lot of fees to cover their basis and whatnot. Not to mention that centralized exchanges are also oftentimes used to like front run all your trades. So Binance, if you're making a large Bitcoin trade, Binance will actually trade in front of your trade, and they'll kind of like rug you in some ways. Maybe not Binance specifically, but centralized exchanges in general do that. And so we don't, and also we can do it for less fees than they would charge, because we have such a lower cost of operation than they do. The negative, though, the hard thing to kind of get past, at least in the current kind of political situation, is that some people might not want to trade on a decentralized exchange because it's decentralized, and they want the liquidity to be, KYC'd and whatnot, right? So institutions that do a large volume trading may refuse to use THORChain, not because the price is too high or too low or whatever, but because they want to interact with only KYC liquidity. And I think that's largely just because of just kind of the rules of the game within the kind of TradFi finance laws and political kind of stance. That might change. To be honest, I actually expect that to change over time. When that is, I don't know. I don't really have a crystal ball per se, but I think it's like it's a natural thing to occur over a long period of time, not anytime in the near future, but probably longer. That vast majority of the worldwide trading of any cryptocurrency will be on some form of DEX.
And to add to that, and what you're asking me, Patriot, the way I envision things going, that if the liquidity pools keep getting bigger, that's like really sticky, always on liquidity, and would make the Bitcoin price more stable. Because what happens in TradFi, like with stocks, is you have market makers and order books, right? And when you get like March 2020 or the fall of 2008, when you get those big market crashes, the market makers are just withdrawing all their bids, right? The order book dries up, right, and becomes a ghost town. That's kind of what happened on with Binance in the flash crash a couple of weeks ago, right? But those are order books. With a liquidity pool, people typically forget about it. They're not really managing it, right? It's just sitting there. So you've got this always on market maker, this always on liquidity pool, where, if it gets really big, there is no order book to evaporate, to disappear. That pool is always on there and would stabilize the price. I don't know going forward now with limit orders on THORChain, how much of a dependence will be on the pools, or how much that'll maybe still hold true. I know JP was saying the other day that tokens can't go to zero on THORChain because of the pools. Even no matter how small the pool is, it's still got to pull from somewhere. Sorry, Chad, were you gonna say something?
Well, I was going to say that like the arbitrage bots in this kind of limit swap mentality are the kind of the first layer of defense, right? To keep the pools, at a certain price, or a market price, whatever. If the arbitrage bots are kind of spent, or there's enough trading happening that they can't keep up with the volume, which happens from time to time, like even in malicious situations, like when funds are stolen and then passed through THORChain to buy some Bitcoin or whatever, the pools become the secondary layer. And the secondary layer, like it matters how deep those pools are, right? So the deeper the pools, the harder it is, the more capital is required to push the price down or up in any particular direction. So we want, we want deep pools to be there as a secondary kind of reinforcer of the pool price in a sense. So that once the arbitrage bots are kind of spent and they have no more capital, and they're currently in the process to swap on other locations to get their money back, to come back into some kind of trade between two different exchanges, to come back to the center again, to push the price again. That takes time. It takes multiple blocks of confirmations to deposit that Bitcoin, whatever it is, into Kraken or whatever interface you're going to be using. that takes 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes, depending upon how many confirmations of what blockchain we're talking about and whatnot. And so for that time period, the price can start moving because arbitrage are basically spent because there's more capital passing through than the arbitrage can arbitrage. So then the pools become the kind of secondary providers of liquidity in a matter of speaking, and they're kind of the backstop. And you want those pools to be as deep as reasonably possible because the deeper they are, the more um, uh, the stickier they make the price. The more capital is required to push the price even 1%.
So do you think with this hybrid model we have now with the pools and limit orders, is it fine? Is it good enough to leave the pools as like what are they considered, V2 type liquidity pools? Like, would it make sense? Still make sense to move towards a concentrated liquidity model, or does it not make sense anymore because we already have limit orders?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for me personally. I've never been a fan of concentrated liquidity. I know a lot of protocols have moved to it, and I've yet to see one that was successful personally. And when I say successful, what I mean is one that doesn't just rug all of the fees to the top 5% of people. I always like the idea that DeFi should be accessible to everybody. And if you move to a concentrated liquidity mentality, then you can't provide liquidity passively. You have to run, a server with some bot that dynamically updates your positions for the trading range you're going to put your position in, your LP position in. And that's just like not really viable or possible for the vast majority of people, out in crypto land. And I want DeFi to stay accessible to everybody. Arbitrage bots are different because they're providing a different role, and they have bots, they have trading, they have to interact with central exchanges anyway to do what they do. So I don't mind making them kind of, in some way speaking, they are the concentrated liquidity. I'm putting this in quotes. That effectively is creating the confidence bands around a certain price to make sure the price doesn't go outside of some place and somewhere. So I don't have any intentions of switching to concentrated liquidity personally, and I every time I've seen somebody move to it, while it does help the protocol and make it more capital efficient, I grant that. It just like everybody, like 90 something percent of the people who provide liquidity are like at a loss because 95% of the fees are collected to the top 5%. And it's just a very unequal system, in my opinion.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I totally get and appreciate your sentiment about making DeFi available to all. I agree with you. That's why I'm into THORChain. That's what keeps me here. But I do think the protocol has to look out for itself. And if concentrated liquidity would make THORChain more capital efficient, more user friendly, because ultimately, like the real users, I think we want to protect are the ones placing swaps, doing trades.
Yep.
If they want to get involved in liquidity pools, that's on them. They got to have the sophistication, understand what they're getting into. It's if they don't want to play that game, that then so be it. But if it would make our THORChain's pricing more efficient, get us more volume, more yield, right? Like people, the normie, the plebs in DeFi, they can participate in bonding or get yield another way on THORChain. Doesn't necessarily have to be through the pools. I feel like there's other ways for the average Joe to benefit in THORChain versus just the people.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open. I'll keep an open mind about it and happy to have more conversations and debates about it. Right now, the biggest liquidity provider by good margin is the protocol itself. And if we switch to something like this, to a concentrated liquidity model, then the protocol itself needs to run its own kind of bot, to maintain its positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Kenton.
I was to say that's a whole other problem in and of itself. I get that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patriot.
Curious, so from what I understand, limit swaps are going to go back live on the 4th, roughly. We're going to see how they perform, assuming no bugs. We're going to let it go. 2 months or whatever it is down the line, we have rapid swaps. So limit swaps. Let's just assume a huge jump in price execution does rapid swaps even take it up to another level, or is it more like a marginal increase? Do you have any opinions on that, Chad?
No, I think it does. I think it significantly does. 'Cause it just means that instead of a streaming swap taking 10 minutes to trade, or even like an hour, it happens in a single block. That won't be true like on day one of rapid swaps, because we're going to limit the number of iterations that can happen in a single block on day one, and we might kind of increase it over time as we feel more and more good or confident in it. But it means that that as an arbitrage bot, instead of waiting 10 minutes for the trade to fully execute, for you to take the liquidity, the trade you just made, and then swap it back and kind of rebuild your kind of the walls that you're creating around the price, you can do that instead of waiting 10 minutes to do it. You can do it almost immediately. So it's a better, more capital efficient way for arbitrage bots to be able to arbitrage faster, and then return their capital back into the system again once it's been traded through. So I think it's going to be quite significant in terms of improving capital efficiency and just getting a larger, kind of more volume through the protocol. But we'll see. We'll find out if I'm right or wrong about that.
Right. So rapid swaps now, because I don't, I am ignorant of a lot of other protocols. Our rapid swaps design, I assume it's rather unique, right? So,
Mhm.
what could we push the argument that this design could technically even be its own? Well, I guess it's getting confusing how I'm thinking about, but it's like a form of concentrated liquidity, right? And it could actually be superior to what's out there. Is that too much of an optimistic stretch, or what do you think?
It's kind of hard to, um, I don't know, to put kind of label on that in that sense. I think fundamentally,
Oh, you're rugging again, Chad. Shoot.
I lost you guys again for a second
Okay,
there.
okay, you're good. Go ahead. You said fundamentally, and
Um,
then you cut out.
so fundamentally, what a wrap swap was really happening kind of behind the scenes is that we make trades. At the end of the block, we make a bunch of trades. We iterate through all the trades that need to happen, and we basically execute all those trades. But in a rapid swap scenario, we execute all those trades once, and then we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. So it just makes sure we just do multiple trades of the same swap in the same block. And so that just makes it so that things can pass through us in a much faster and more capital efficient way, so that you can get the performance of an insta swap, right? And it happens in a single block, but with the price execution of a streaming swap. And so it just makes the entire experience better, the UI UX experience, because your trade happens a lot faster. Instead of waiting 10 minutes, it executes in a single block. And we've already kind of reduced the outbound delay. So it should just make trading in general quicker and faster, which is good from a UX perspective, but it's also good for arbitrage bots just to kind of stay on top of things.
Right. And I'm curious if, with the rapid swaps, we both, everyone gets what they want. We get a price execution that's on par with other concentrated liquidity models, yet it's our own design. Go ahead, Kenton.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to ask if can we actually, with the increased efficiency of rapid swaps, can we actually see revenue go down for a bit? We might see volume go up, but we could see the actual liquidity fees go down because it's so efficient.
No, I don't think so, because you're still whatever the min basis points is. I think right now it's at 10 or 15. That's still being paid whether it's a rapid swap or a non-rapid swap. So the fees collected will be the same. The only thing that's really changing is the speed of how fast it executes.
Nice. The other thing I wanted to ask, back to limit swaps, and just let's keep rapid swaps out of it. If we just have limit orders, how will that affect streaming swaps? Will they be able to go any quicker, or they'll be more efficiently priced? How will it affect streaming swaps?
Streaming swaps, a non-rapid swap streaming swap against a limit order, should have better price execution, in theory.
Okay, so it'll still take the same amount of time, but just get a better price.
Right. And the reason why that is because, kind of going back to my block 1, block 2, block 3 kind of hypothesis earlier, in a streaming swap, most of them trade, one little sub swap per block. So every block you're doing a little tiny trade, right? For however many sub swaps you're having in your particular trade. And so you make the first trade. Let's just assume the price is correct in this first trade. And then the second block, you trade again, but an arbitrage bot maybe has or maybe has not fixed the price before your second trade goes through, depending upon the size of the trade of your trade versus the size of the arbitrage bot's trade. So like you're playing with you're still trading against a pool even when the pool price is incorrect in that streaming swap scenario, but with a proactive way of arbitraging the pools rather than passively. The price in theory never actually gets incorrect to begin with, and therefore you're trading the same pool ratio the entire time of your streaming swap. In theory, that's not practically correct in some scenarios. Whatever, I'm taking a very complicated thing and I'm distilling it down to something overly simple. But in theory, you would trade against the same ratio in the pool between the asset and rune the whole time, more or less.
And so we should see a lot less streaming swaps get refunded, get canceled.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, that's probably true.
And then now let's go back to including rapid swaps. If I've got a streaming swap, it's gone for a couple hours, let's say, and halfway through somebody else comes in with the inverse trade, the rapid swap could jump in and finish my streaming swap right away. Is that
basically yes? Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like how should I say this? Yeah, I guess it's always netting them out. It's always looking to see. It's always trying to cancel orders out, right? Doesn't matter when you get your trade in. If it's a market order or a streaming swap, it's always looking to cancel them out. Okay.
Yeah, the code itself actually looks for pairs. So when you have a trade that's going from Bitcoin to Ether, for example, like some market swap thing, and it's a large trade, it's doing 100 sub swaps in the streaming swap, and it's enabled it to do a rapid swap, 100 trades in a single block, theoretically. And then you have an arbitrage bot that's arbing from Ethereum to Bitcoin in the opposite direction. It will basically pair the market swap with the limit swap, and will each kind of iteration, each one will trade once, but they're trading in one direction, the other one's trading the other direction. So there's just like going back and forth, pushing the price in one direction, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, 100 times in theory, and then the whole thing stops. Or if you have 100 trades happening in the market swap, but only 50 trades on the limit swap, it'll do the first 50, and then the limit swap will either go away or not be able to keep up with the price on the limit that it's requiring, and then it basically stops. And now the market trade that has another 50 trades to go no longer has a pair to pair against. So then it just basically defaults back to a regular old streaming swap because there's no arbitrage to supply the other 50 trades that needs to happen. So it goes back to the kind of the way that it happens now, more or less, until an arbitrage bot comes back and provides the other 50.
This is pretty cool, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the volume is like when both these features are like done live, no bugs.
Yeah,
it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because to my knowledge, nobody's ever done this before. Like this is what we've effectively built here is it's a liquidity pool with limit orders kind of mashed in the middle of it, so to speak. It's kind of like a hybrid. It's not an order book, and in the traditional sense, it's a liquidity pool with an order book thrown on top of it. I don't think we've ever seen that done anywhere before. I think this is the first at least from my knowledge, is the first implementation of something like this. So I'm very curious to see how well that does.
Constantly pushing the envelope.
Go ahead, sorry, Patriot.
No, go ahead, brother. You're good. I was just saying something.
No, I was just gonna say, and isn't part of the reason this hasn't been done before, like say on Ethereum, like limit orders are impossible to do on an EVM chain? Is that right?
Kind of. Limit orders they require a lot of computational effort, right? That's why liquidity pools have been around since the 90s, I think, right? It's a concept that existed within TradFi for a long time, but it was rarely used because it's not order books are better than liquidity pools in many respects. But the order books require much more computational resources to achieve what it is they do to find these kind of matching system. And it's just more computationally heavy, which makes it very difficult to throw it on something like Ethereum. Maybe you could do it on something like, that's faster, like a Solana possibly, or whatever. I'm sure there are like probably even order books on Solana or other like faster EVM chains. But for kind of more traditional EVMs, it was kind of impractical, which is why Uniswap and those earlier forms of liquidity pools were like the only viable option, because you couldn't have done order books on Ethereum, back in Uniswap's days. It just not. I don't think it's. It just would cost so much from a gas perspective that it just wouldn't be really all that viable or useful for the most part. And there, I mean, there have been like attempts at like Atomic Swap is kind of an order book, sort of. I mean, it's a little bit conceptually similar, like an Atomic Swap, but there was never liquidity to any of those Atomic Swap interfaces back in like 2017, 2019 timeframe. So but here, because we have our own chain and we have more or less lots of computational power behind THORChain versus something like Ethereum, we can actually do order books. In fact, the app layer is actually implementing their full scale, properly implemented order book designs, which is totally practical on something like a THORChain.
So is it the Tendermint that gives THORChain more computational power, like just a totally different language? Or what's special about THORChain that we can do it and it's hard on Ethereum?
Well, we don't pay, like on Ethereum. You pay for computational power, right? So for every operation you do on Ethereum, they charge you more and more gas. If every time you stave something to the state and then to the blockchain, they charge you more and more gas because because Ethereum is so decentralized with so many people running Ethereum nodes around the world. Inherently, when something becomes more centralized, it becomes computationally like has less resources than things that do, right? So like Solana, for example, is like a relatively small chain in the context of like how many validators there are relative to Ethereum or relative to Bitcoin. And a lot of those validators for Solana are like run by the Solana team, in their data center or wherever the hell it is. So they have more space to be able to run things, have more computational resources because there's less servers involved in that computation, in a matter of speaking. So for us, we have 110 validators right now, whatever the number is, 105, whatever the number is. And so we just have a lot more kind of space and to play and to do things that what you really could not practically do on something like Ethereum.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I should have said this earlier, guys. I'm sorry. This conversation has been really interesting. Requires a lot of computational burden or cognitive burden. I mean, if you have any questions and you don't feel like requesting, please click on the THORChain account and follow the THORChain account if you haven't done that already. Go to the pinned comment that is this space, and you can type something there. Sorry, it's not readily available, but no big deal. Just click that thing. And we can, if I see any comments there, I can ask them to Chad because we're coming up to an hour and 15 minutes. It's been a banger conversation so far. Okay, Kenton, do we have anything else left on limit swaps or anything else? Maybe we can.
Yeah, I think it's a good segue. Limit swaps is a good segue into raising the security hard cap, because in order for our bots to place limits, they have to deposit crypto into trade assets or secured assets, right? And we need room on the protocol to accept it. So that got passed. That vote went through. Went pretty quick. Hey, I think it only took about a week.
Yeah, it
So
went pretty well.
Yeah, maybe you just want to remind people what happened there, Chad.
Yeah, I think what happened was a combination of things. One is we had the flash crash in the industry as a whole, and everything got hit pretty hard. And obviously, Rune got hit worse than like something like Bitcoin because its market cap is significantly less than Bitcoin, and so that used up a lot more of our security kind of buffer. In tandem to that, we also had like millions of dollars added as secured assets to things that.
You're rugging again, brother. You can try your
Sorry,
mic.
guys. Yep. Sorry, guys.
Go ahead.
So combined between a downward motion of the Rune price relative to large assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and an increase of secured assets to deposit millions of dollars onto secured assets, we ran out of cap, right? So we wanted to increase that cap so we could give more opportunity for the app layer to do what the app layer is going to do and provide the services that they're going to provide. I honestly don't think we're going to increase the cap again, personally. I mean, it could happen, of course. Either we have more macro down, actions, like maybe the greater economy goes to shit, and the crypto industry is not decoupled from the American economy, and we see more downside to the general prices of cryptocurrency in general. That could happen, in which case we might want to increase the cap again in that scenario. Or the other side of the scale is that, App Layer does something really great and they're getting a lot of liquidity and people are getting really excited about using perpetuals or whatever app that is happening. So we see a lot of deposits happening. So we might have to add liquidity, add security at that point. But barring those two kind of outcomes, most likely that I don't think we'll have to up the cap again. Personally, this is my personal guess, because I think eventually we'll go back into like a regular old kind of bull market, and Rune's price will move from where it is now to some significantly higher number, hopefully, and then we'll have more than enough security to handle everything.
What if the lending feature takes off though? Like you've brought this up numerous times, that if there's outstanding loans on THORChain and prices are dropping and the user needs to deposit, like make a margin call basically. And if THORChain reaches a hard cap, the user won't be able to make that deposit and they're going to get liquidated. I don't think we can risk having that happen. Like that's a horrible UX, right? And it's the last thing THORChain needs is that kind of FUD. So like I've been thinking about it. I mean, if we're going to have a lending feature, can we even honestly launch it if there's a hard cap? Would anybody, one, if the people who do use it could get burned, and two, the real money that we want to use it may never touch it because of the hard cap, and because the risks involved. It won't really scale until we get rid of the hard cap. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think that's a decision up to Ruji or whoever is providing this loan, that they may make it a requirement of launching Bitcoin loans on the app layer, that we remove the cap. And I would understand it if that's the position that they would want to take. But that's up to them to make that choice. To how they want to handle that.
Go ahead, Patriot.
Well, this is kind of leaking into our last topic last week about, the security cap. Boone came up, and, I don't want to necessarily rehash that whole conversation. I think we beat it to death, and I think everyone heard. If people are interested, I definitely recommend checking out the last Thor's Day space with Chad Barraford, where we really broke it down. But, to just glaze over it lightly, and I know Slam Bammer, you're up here. I'll get you in just a second, brother. If you're worried about the security cap, right, and let's say this is a potential attack vector, whether you believe that or not, my idea is, or this the way I think about my mind is, let's assume, even if you don't agree, let's just assume Boone's correct, right, that this is a very terrible risk and thing like this. To me, I thought from the previous conversation is the ultimate fix is if we work on further decentralization of the network, get up to more node operators, more unique node operators, and then the greatest defense is the decentralization and the impracticality of, taking over the network where people can't steal like this big buck, where it's just so impossible. There's like, maybe there's double the rune, maybe we're getting 200 million rune. It's in the system in order to buy more rune, and the time required and the effort required it's just not possible. I think if we work towards that goal, I think this debate kind of becomes moot, right? And then, we've successfully just become so decentralized, it's just not possible anymore. I don't know how you guys think about that, but that's what my brain does when I think about it.
Yeah, after our last week's conversation on this topic, Boone and I, who was a vocal person who doesn't want to increase the cap. We had a conversation back and forth, and I did a little bit of vibe coding to calculate, what is the actual risk of the network, like how many nodes would need to collude and blah blah blah. Like actually do some calculations. Hopefully, the vibe coding didn't do something really dumb and miscalculate things significantly, but I was just throwing some numbers together real quick because it wasn't really that important per se. But I just shared a tweet at the top of this space here where I kind of did some calculations and like how many unique operators we have and how many nodes are multi-nodes and how many nodes are single nodes and how many of these would have to collude in order to get X or Y. And after like looking through like these numbers that looking at them, it made me less concerned about the issue, to be honest with you. Like even if you got 100% of every multi-node operator to all collude into the system, you still would not be been able to rug any money, let alone being profitable for them to do that. So it just I'm after running the numbers themselves, I'm actually even less concerned about it than I was last week.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I think I saw, I don't know if he's right. I thought he said, if 9 multi-node operators colluded, that would be enough. So, but I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a data thing. But regardless, it would be very, very difficult to do. Very difficult.
Yeah, even if you got 9 multi-node operators, you would not have enough. Well, you would need, it's because there's each vault has like basically 20 people in it, or 20 shares, maybe 18 depending on what vault we're talking about. But you need 12 kind of people within a single vault to collude to steal funds, typically like 11 or 12 things. So having 9 is probably not going to be enough. Even if it is to be able to rug a specific vault, you wouldn't have enough value in that vault that would be greater than the bond of those 9 validators. Because when you are a multi-node operator, you have one operator address and multiple nodes associated with it. The protocol naturally spreads instances of your nodes across all of the vaults. So you're not going to be thrown into all your nodes in a single vault. You're going to be spread evenly across all of the vaults. And so that spread makes it so that capturing any one particular vault, even if you were able to capture it, you have so much room in the other 5 vaults that you don't have access to, that you wouldn't be able to steal it in a profitable way. In order to get to a place where you could steal from all 6 nodes and be profitable, at that point you have to run 2/3 majority of the entire nodes of the network, which is like 72 nodes or something like this. I think 73 nodes, something like that. And there's no 9 operators, even all the 15 multi-node operators, they don't collectively run that 72 or 73 number that you would need to get to rug the entire protocol. So it seems like it's I don't want to say it's impossible, because I'm not going to say those words, but mathematically it just seems extremely improbable, especially when you consider that these multi-node operators are not some randos. They're people highly aligned to the protocol. And if you wanted to attack the network, being a multi-node operator is probably literally by design, the least efficient way of rugging funds.
And for anyone listening here who's new, I see some new faces in the audience. This is what we do. We talk about everything in the open. Everything on THORChain is openly debated. There is nothing that's really obfuscated from public view. And I hope by this conversation, you guys understand just how serious we are trying to design a protocol that literally, emancipates the world. There is no gatekeeping here. It's all just, we come up here and we discuss, we play with ideas, we think of attack vectors, and we try to think ahead of problems that can occur. And this is how we've always been. So I hope that makes you guys feel comfortable. We're never going to hide. I mean, the transparency, I think, is the bullish thing about THORChain. But we have a speaker up here. I thank you for your patience, Slam Bammer. Hopefully we didn't get past the thing you want to talk about, but I want to kick it to you if you want to test your mic, buddy. And Slam Bammer is a node operator, by the way, people, just so if you don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the votes to increase the cap has passed now. So I think we passed that. And if I'm honest, I do agree with Chad insofar as that I'm not worried that, this is going to make the network less secure. I think one of the things that I am a little bit concerned about is slowly we are seeing less and less factors that are going to put buying pressure on Rune. I think we've got to the point where liquidity is extremely efficient on the network, and so we don't need buying pressure on Rune in order for the liquidity pools to deepen. And now, if we increase the security cap or indeed remove it, then there's no imperative for people to, or for the network as a whole, to bond more Rune in order to hold more exogenous assets. So again, I don't think it's necessarily a problem that we've removed the cap. I just think we need to consider what the overall tokenomics of Rune are and see what sources of, I guess, buying pressure we can put on it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chad.
I was gonna say, like, people predominantly bond to the protocol, not necessarily to add security. That's the value they bring to the protocol, but the value that they get is the yield that they get back, right? They get whatever percent yield they get back. So even if you have, unlimited, cap on the exogenous assets, I think people would still provide Rune and bond because they want to get some of that sweet yield. And I don't think people are going to stop bonding or not bond or withdraw their bond just because the cap is, you know, removed or whatever.
Yeah, that definitely that's a fair point. All I'm saying is that we're at the point now where sure we're not at no cap yet. I think we're sort of around the 110 mark, hovering around there these days. But we certainly are getting close to having all the node spots filled, and at some point there's going to be a question. Okay, if I was wanting to invest in Rune, how would I do that, and how could you move in with size? And I think that's something that we should consider.
Yeah.
Well, I can address
Yeah.
that slightly. Like to me, that is a reason to increase or remove the cap, because the more volume we have, the more yield we have, right? Like Chad was saying. And so just because the nodes, if we reach the 120 node cap, that doesn't mean there's a cap on Rune being added to the nodes. Right? Like we'll see instead of it, the max efficient bond being was it 990 right now? It'll go to 2 million, right? Like the node sizes will get bigger because people will be competing, nodes will be competing against each other to get into the network to capture that yield. Like that will create a demand on the Rune price is yield, right? For the nodes, from a nodes and bond providers point of view, like the last couple of years actually sucked. The yield has been crap. If we can get the yield consistently 20-30%, if not higher, people are going to buy Rune and want to collect that yield, and so that'll be our demand center on the Rune price.
I mean, I'm not sure how much I agree with that. Like I'm looking at the Thor node network right now, and the APY right now for nodes is like somewhere between 15 and 20%, which is, that to me, that's freaking great. I mean, 30% is obviously a better number, but I mean, we've seen that too in the past, but never in a sustained kind of way. To me, if we're 6% or higher, I think we're good. Obviously, 6 is not as good as a higher number, but like in order to be competitive in the general market, I think we need to see at least a 6% at the bare minimum, which we were at for some period of time, in recent months prior. But I mean, right now we're at 15 to 20% according to THORChain.
I mean, so I agree in that. I think I'm not getting hung up on any numbers that are happening right now or in the last few weeks. I know we still have the minimum fee experimentation that 9rons are carrying out. I think to some extent, while I mean I'm a big believer in the network, I'm still stacking Rune. I'm trying to increase the bond that I have in my node, but at some point, people are going to want to return on the investment. And if you have your yield can be 50%, if Rune is an asset that's not appreciating in price and it's going down, then your real yield is still something that you have to calculate and may only be at break even. I'm not saying that Rune is going to go further down from here or things like that. I'm just saying I think we do need to strongly consider what factors we can create that create price pressure.
Yeah, we've thought a lot about this in the past, and we've done a lot of things to address this. So, like the rune burning, for example, was supposed to be the point of this is to drive more investment into the token. We got rid of block rewards. That was another thing we did that was supposed to drive more kind of adoption of the token. We've done a lot of things. We've done bond providers was another thing to make it easier for more people to provide rune as a bond. We've done a lot of things. I don't know what else we can do at this point. We even did like things that didn't work, like the rune pool, for example. That didn't work out so well. But we've done a lot of things over the last, even 6 months or a year. I don't have any other ideas that we can do. For me, the best way to drive more revenue into the Rune token, more value into it, is just having the protocol itself be successful in the sense that it just gets more volume, more fees collected, that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm so focused on these kind of newer features like limit swaps and rapid swaps and memoless and even restructuring things to be more easy to add a lot more chains to the protocol, add a lot more routes, adding intents. All these things, like I'm excited about those things because they drive value inherently into the protocol by just creating more volume and more reasons to trade and more easier ways to trade and create better capital efficiency and more chains and more routes, thousands and thousands of routes in theory. So like that's how I think about it rather than I was never really a fan of the 5% burn personally. I wasn't a fan of removing the block rewards. I think those weren't really great ways of driving value into the token. But the community voted and that's what happened. That's why I'm so focused on these features and why I think that's why I'm dedicating almost all of my time into getting these things launched as fast as possible.
That's
Yeah, I think that's fair, and you're right. I would agree that these features are going to be big.
Yeah.
Those are all, everything we're talking about right now, those are all objective things, right? Objective value. But value is subjective, right? Like, Bitcoin is arguably a meme coin, right? It's just, so is gold. It's what everybody values it at, right? There's no like, this is what it has to be worth type thing. And that's true of all investments, right? It's, it's what the market decides they're worth. And so the problem with Rune right now is it subject value. Like the market is pricing THORChain as if this is it. Like it's not, it's going to have zero growth. There is no growth. There's no premium built into the Rune price. The market thinks THORChain is done, that it's going sideways from here, that it's never going to grow. So there's no premium. There's no like the subjective value is gone basically. And so this is what hopefully we can change with marketing, getting the message out there and start changing the narrative and start reminding people that THORChain isn't gone. It is here. It exists. It's growing. It's going to grow. This is what's happening. And then if we can actually deliver on it with these new features, which I think we will, the market will see that and be like, okay, these guys are growing. Volume's going up. Users are going up. Revenue's going up. Why isn't the token price going up? Dang it, I should buy. This is undervalued. I want to get in, right? This is big. This is huge. And so like, this is why, like my prophecy of Threath, I'm having fun, guys. I hope you understand. It's having fun on Twitter, but there is an element of truth in that. We have to have, what is our goal? Like, what are we trying to be and become? And Bitcoin has always been the market cap of gold, right? Bitcoin is digital gold, right? And it's focused the entire world onto that. And this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Bitcoin market cap will become same as the gold market cap one day. I think it'll happen. I think enough people believe it that it's gonna happen. We need to change a narrative that, or help get the message out that THORChain is decentralized, is a digital Binance, right? THORChain is going to become the same market cap Binance one day, and we just get that message out there and get people to start thinking about it, believing it. It'll happen, and then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it all comes down to belief, right? You can. Trust me, I'm an engineer, guys. I learned this the hard way with investing. Like, you think, oh, I should be able to come up with, like, analyze all these, analyze all these investment statements and create this beautiful model, and I can find value that somebody else doesn't, and this is how you make money. No, that's not how it works. It's all subjective. It's all just where the attention economy is, what people believe in, and what people get behind. And all these features and all these things, just really what they do is give somebody something to latch onto, to have something to believe in. So this is why you see garbage businesses, garbage stocks, garbage tokens have billion-dollar valuations with like no revenue, being run by a scumbag. It's all belief, right? It's all subjective value. So we just don't have any subjective value in Rune right now. We got to change that. We have tons of, like, what remains is what little objective value anybody can kind of argue. We got to boost up the subjective value.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Do you agree? Disagree? Yeah.
I know. I agree that the value of anything is subjective. There's no such thing as objective value. Like, we just, what gives value is a consensus across many people, and the more people that are involved in that consensus, the more accurate the value is inherently going to be. And for me, like, I've always been this way, and I think I always will be this way. Like, I always think about fundamentals. I always think about value proposition. And if I want the Rune price to go higher from where it is now, that could happen on its own just from the macro, right? Like, Rune's price will never be sideways necessarily, because the macro will push it up, and the macro will push it down, the macro will push it sideways. Like, that'll never, like, it'll just move with the general market, just because that's what the markets are. More so on Rune than most of the tokens, because when Bitcoin's price goes up, there's an arbitrage opportunity to correct the pool. So someone needs to buy Rune to correct the Bitcoin pool, and the deeper the Bitcoin pool, the more correlated Rune's price is going to be with Bitcoin's price, just by generality. It's not always going to be the case, of course, but just by generality, that's true. So for me, I always think about, like, what can we do to make THORChain have a stronger value proposition, to appeal to more people, to get more volume, and being more competitive to the centralized exchanges, and providing advanced swapping universe UIs, like the pro and pro UIs that you see on Binance or Kraken or Hyperliquid, or these kind of things, is changing our value proposition to create more value, more opportunity, more trade, more fees, more this, more that. And inherently, which should happen, and maybe it's not always true this happens, but it should, is that the price moves with the value that we're proposing for the industry.
I think that was well said by both of you, and I love that spirit, Kenton. And your experience matches my own when it comes to investing, and the fundamentals are there. Like Chad says, the way I think of it is, the market's not there yet. That's fine. It's a voting machine, and then it turns into a weighing machine, right? I think you've used that same metaphor before, Chad. We do have a question by Max Power. Okay, well, he directs it at Kenton, actually, but I'll just read it out. Anyone can answer it. Kenton, if Rajira Network has IBC assets, those would not use any TC security cap, could users use those to close or protect any position? No? Question mark. That makes sense?
I think it does, but I can't answer it. Yeah, please jump in, Chad.
Yeah, so we don't have IBC in this particular moment. I know that's something that's been discussed for a handful of reasons. But if you want to calculate, Kieran, we have to include. Am I lost again?
You're good. You're good, right? It was just a second.
Okay. If we're going to allow IBC assets to be taken into our network, then that is part of the TVL. That is part of the liquidity that we are securing. So that should be, in theory, be accrued to the value of what we're TVLing, so to speak. But that actually becomes very difficult to do in some ways, because if you get some random IBC token from some random chain and we don't have a liquidity pool for that particular asset, then we don't know the value, right? Unless we're going to be relying on the Oracle system that the Ruji team built to tell us what the value is of this particular token, we don't really know the value is, and therefore we can't really secure it in a traditional sense because we don't know how much money it's worth, right? The pools tell us what the value of any particular asset really is, and if there's no pool, then you don't really know how it's worth 10 cents, it's worth 10 million. It's, we have no idea how to differentiate those two things. So it becomes nearly impossible to actually calculate what our TVL even is for the protocol to even know the answer to that question. Again, unless the Oracle system plays a role in that way or shape or form. But then again, if we're heading towards a direction where we're just going to have no cap, then it doesn't really matter anymore. We can go ahead and throw in as many IBC tokens as the industry wants to throw at us, and it's all the same. Which, by the way, is exactly what Osmosis did.
Interesting. I don't know if this makes sense. I'm getting a little tired, I think, in my brain, but could there not be some sort of liquidity pool on the app layer itself for the IBC tokens, and you could use that?
Yeah,
okay,
that's possible. Yeah, absolutely. That's as long as there's some sort of liquidity somewhere that tells us the price, then yes, that's possible.
And then so the IBC assets, that they would be commensurate with the pools that are available, maybe somehow. Like IBC confused me because the one thing from what I remember is described to me, it's like it's really hard to, you can't just segment it, right? It's like, or it's really hard to do that. It's when IBC is active, it's just a free flow of assets between. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, more or less.
All right, so you couldn't. It's like whitelisting an asset. Like I don't know if you can do that in IBC.
Yeah, you can.
You can. Okay.
Yeah. I would suspect we would we want to whitelist tokens on the THORChain network in general. Like, you could make a stance that you don't like this idea, and there's this reasonable argument you can make for it. But in general, like, we don't want to see fake Uniswap tokens or fake Ether tokens or fake Sol tokens or whatever on our protocol, because it's just a recipe for people to get robbed of their funds. And obviously, we don't want that, right? The whitelist that we typically use right now, we just basically steal it or copy it from like 1inch or one of these kind of like dexes that spend a lot of time and resources to maintain those kind of whitelists. And so we would probably do the same thing for IBC, just to ensure we're not getting some like random token has malicious intent in one form or another.
If we added IBC, would that be configurable via Mimir on the THORChain nodes for the app layer? Is that, you think, how it would work? Maybe.
That depends. So when you have an IBC tokens that are transferred between chain A and chain B, typically there's some sort of individual or server somewhere that is facilitating that, right? And in order to do that, they have to run a full node of chain A, which would be THORChain, for example, and a full node of chain B, which might be like Gaia or Osmosis, or insert IBC chain here. And so they have to collect like a token or a fee as part of that to provide that service. That's typically how it's done. I think a lot of chains pay Strangelove to have run IBC infrastructure on their behalf, and they do it in a very kind of centralized way. And maybe that's okay for some chains. We've always advocated to the actual Cosmos dev. We've been talking to them for years about this. Like, I remember talking to them back in like 2021 about this idea of just allowing the validators of your chain to be the ones that are actually doing the IBC work as well. Whoever's proposing the block is also the IBC for that particular block and transfers the tokens from point A to point B. And maybe that's what it is now. I haven't looked at IBC in a long time, to be honest with you. So maybe they've made some changes. That's how it works today. I don't even know. But that is something we'd have to figure out how we would implement that, and would be running it through a company like Strangelove. Would that be good enough for our needs, or would we want something a little bit more decentralized and have validators of THORChain be kind of the IBC kind of engines, if you will, and then they have to get some extra fee or some sort of bonus for providing that service or that work. We haven't really had any real conversations about this at this time. Not, at least I haven't. So there's no immediate plan to do that, but that could change in the future for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I honestly don't know enough about it, so I don't want to bore the conversation by just asking simple questions. But yeah, I think that's a few layers deep, and we're not even there yet. But it surely will be an interesting topic, I think, for the future. Okay, guys, please, if you're listening to Space, please share it. This has been an absolute banger space. As always, let's be real. As always, we're always all signal, very little noise. We don't like to waste anyone's time. And the moment that we figure out that we don't have anything else to say, we shut it down. That's how we do it here. Thank you again, Chad, for your time. It's awesome. Okay, Kenton, Slambammer, did you guys have anything else? I did have another topic, but I want to make sure that, we don't skip it. If you guys have something else you want to add.
Not me.
I had a topic that I was talking to somebody in the Discords, and one thing they requested was DCA, like allowing DCA to happen on THORChain. For those who don't know, DCA stands for dollar cost averaging. It basically is a way of like, hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin, over a long period of time and just kind of market buy, every day, make a small trade, buy $5 worth or $10 worth of something small, and every day just kind of like stacking coins, stacking satoshis, either dollar cost averaging into a token or dollar cost averaging out of a token. It's something you can set up and just let it kind of just go, and over a month period or 6 month period or whatever, you just kind of constantly just buying some asset or selling some asset. You really can't do that on THORChain today for a couple of reasons, but they're not really strong reasons. So one reason is that you can only stream for so long on THORChain. So like streaming swaps only happen for a maximum of some blocks. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. So you wouldn't be able to stream longer than I think 3 days, I want to say. I don't know. I have to look up the configuration. So you need to extend that, which is not hard to do. And then the other thing we would have to do to support it is the ability to cancel a market swap. We've never done that in the past because doing a market swap is typically very fast. It happens within, a short period of time. So canceling it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for the vast majority of situations. But if you get to a situation where you're doing a DCA streaming swap and you're doing like one sub trade like every 10,000 blocks or 100,000 blocks or whatever the number you're configuring, then it makes a little bit more sense to do it like a cancel. So I actually poked at a little bit I think it was yesterday, I started poking at that and like how much work it would take to add the ability to cancel a market swap. But once we had that merged, then it's another type of customer, another type of user that could use THORChain to DCA into the protocol and just slowly trade over time.
That is badass. I love that. More utility. It looks like my co-host Rug, Kenton Rug. So that's unfortunate. We'll get him back up here, but that's really, really cool. So maybe we'll bring that up next week and see. Maybe I don't know if you're gonna dig more into that, but that's very exciting. Just more utility is always the best. Kenton, can I just check your microphone, make sure you're there, buddy? Okay, well, it said he was a listener. Now it says he's co-host. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe intern, you can try and kick him and then him rejoin. He'll get back up here. But okay, I'm going to keep the conversation moving. We can revisit that if he has Kenton has something to say. But I want to quickly touch on, you have a Solana update by chance, Chad? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think Solana is, if I remember correctly, and I apologize if I misspeak here, but I think Solana is planned as part of 3.12, which is coming out on Tuesday. It probably won't be launched on Tuesday. Like the code's gonna be launched on Tuesday, and we're gonna start that process probably like next week or maybe the week after. In addition to that, Zcash is also kind of like on the table to be added in the near future. So I think the Nine Realms team will be working to get both of those added to the protocol in the near future. And I think in that particular case, a lot of validators will probably be using a hosted solution to get access to Solana, daemon data, just because it's so overtly expensive to run your own of that. It's absurd how resource intensive that blockchain is. But I think we're getting pretty close to the point of adding Solana and also Zcash.
That's real. Oh, okay. That's really cool. So, because for those who don't know, my protocol, our sister chain, we love them to death. They've helped us a lot. They have Zcash live right now. So They've done a lot of the hard work for us, so it's more or less taking the code and putting it in. And JP on a separate space said that my protocol and THORChain are interested in basically getting the same Bifrost architecture and some other things, so that this becomes a very streamlined process. Like, let's say we add Monero, my protocol can adopt it real quick. So that's really cool. That's very cool. So because Solana is ridiculously fast, it's beyond my understanding how fast it is. But when we have block explorers from the THORChain side, it'll be pretty easy, right? Like THORChain block is roughly 6 seconds, and that'll correspond directly with a transaction on Solana side. So it'll be just as trivial as anything else to read on a block explorer. Is my understanding correct, Chad?
What do you mean by reading on a block explorer? I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
I'm sorry. When you're like looking up individual transactions or anything like that, like you'll see streaming swaps in flow, like in progress.
Yeah.
It'll look like anything else, right?
It'll look like everything else. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for that confusion there. Kenton, try your mic.
Mic check.
You're back, buddy. Welcome back.
Good, thanks.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that, Kenton. Looks like Solana is slated for the 4th. We'll see how that goes with RPC and things like that. Were you wanting to say, did we miss anything on your end, Kenton?
Yeah, I did hear like half of that, so that's awesome. Solana can't come soon enough. Yeah, I mean, just another, I guess, the marketing side. So the marketing fund, that'll kick in 3/12, the 5% going to the Rune wallet. And then also the network, the system income that's like topping up the reserve, that's going to go to the yield for the whole protocol. So that's, in theory, that's going to offset the 5% marketing fund. So the net drain to the sorry guys, I'm like totally stumbling on my words, brain farting right now. The net effect on the system yield should be neutral. So that'll go in 3/12 next week too.
Very cool. And yeah, I feel you on the brain farting thing. I think I get like 2 hours in, and then the fatigue of the conversation, like it's a lot, man. Like to listen, it's not a big deal, but when you're on a space, you have to think and constantly keep engaged and, formulate your response. And yeah, it's exhausting. So, very cool. Well, guys, do we have any, let me check my list. I always make a list here. I want to make sure that we've talked about everything. I was going to talk about ossification. We really talked about that a lot. That's really cool. I don't think so. I think we don't necessarily have to talk about that though, because I mean that's where we're going, right? So, but we'll see. Maybe we're completely wrong, as we said the last space when it comes. Well, maybe we'll think of some genius thing like your dollar cost averaging, Chad, and then you'll think of a new primitive, and man, we're down another awesome rabbit hole. We're just building some cool new thing that's gonna add even more utility. So heck yeah.
If we have
Sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was gonna say I've thought about ossification lots, and like I've actually come around in different ways. Like I understand why why Bitcoin should ossify, like as a store of value. You don't want to take any chances type deal. But and there's really no, I don't think Bitcoin really has any competition. Kind of like gold, right? Up until the invention of Bitcoin, gold really didn't have much competition as a store of value. Maybe real estate, I guess you could say, but anyway, I think competition for Bitcoin is maybe Monero, maybe Zcash, a couple other things, but not much. Whereas with the THORChain and exchange, like I feel like we're always going to have competition, and we might, if we ossify, then that's like Blockbuster ossifying. Like we gotta stay with the trends and keep adapting and adding, and like look at intents, right? Like we're adding that now because of near, we're trying to do it to stay relevant, right? So in my mind, I think we're always going to have to be keeping an eye on things and always tweaking and adjusting and adding new features. Curious for your thoughts there, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to what you were just saying. I think like for JP and I, and Kai as well. Kai was one of the original co-founders in the earlier days. we always talk about like planned obsolescence. Um, and that's not the same as ossification, to be fair, but the idea of like is like every blockchain project starts very centralized, by some individual that's coding it all, blah blah blah, whatever in the beginning, and then hopefully over time it becomes more and more decentralized, and you rely less on the founders and the original devs and whatnot, and you kind of allow the community to take over more and more responsibility. That was always the mentality or the kind of the vision that we kind of had. I think going through the experience of the last few years and seeing our ups and downs, and how much what things the community is very good at taking on for responsibility, and what things the community is not very good at taking on as responsibility, has kind of been shown to at least me and JP over the years. Um, and I think we just wanted, me and him specifically to be kind of less and less involved, to be less and less reliant on us as individuals, and kind of spread out with more minds. And I think that ended up being a lot more difficult to achieve in practicality than it seemed at its face. I'm down for ossification, meaning like not really fucking around with the system too much and adding like too much stuff in general. But at the same time, to agree with what Kenton was just saying, like you always have to be relevant, and you always have to think about adjust to the times. And because we're not just like a store of value like Bitcoin, as Kenton was saying, we're an entire like DeFi protocol. We're in a environment that is somewhat liquid, that it moves, and what is kind of hip of the day, is one thing, and it changes the next. And what the demands are, the usage are going to be like a constantly shifting thing to some degree. So even if we get to the place of what I would consider to be ossification, it doesn't mean that I'm no longer, putting some dev work in, or we're no longer adding new chains, or we're no longer doing like bug fixing or refactoring or whatever. We always have to keep our eye on the ball and be responsive to the industry as a whole. And if there's a way that we can provide, more value or greater efficiency or whatever that is worth the engineering effort and the time it takes to do so, then we should always be open to that. Obviously we just want to be careful about the things we choose to do and things we don't choose to do. For example, like we all agree THORFi didn't work out the way we wanted it to, and we know not to do something like that in the future. And so we're going to stay focused on more kind of fundamental features that don't have any kind of reflexivity around them, like limit swaps or DCA or any of these memoless whatever, that provide a lot of value but don't provide that much of a security or a complexity risk.
Yeah, that's it. I agree with both of you. I think you both hit the nail on the head. You got to keep updating the code. Things will change. That's the job of the devs. Optimizing code, making things better. But when I think of ossification, I think, what is THORChain? What is it doing? Decentralized liquidity pools. We make that liquidity as efficient as possible, and the things that we build upon it is really sets us apart. And I know you said in the last space, Chad, a lot of these cool new innovative things, those will probably take place on the app layer.
Yep.
And I think that's probably the right. But to Kenton's point, we must remain open if something really amazing comes out, like intent thing that, or esque type of innovation, that we also pursue that. So yeah, I think that's well said. Okay. I'm looking at my list here. I think we got it all. I do see Boone in the audience. I just shout you out real quick, Boone. On the recording, I think it's at the 1 hour, 20-minute mark. We did talk a little bit about, we didn't really say anything too different. So, it's not something we have to discuss because we're about to wrap the space, but just give you that little time frame that you want to go and look at it yourself, so you can, hit that part of the conversation. So I know that'll be interesting to you. Okay, guys, we were going on over 2 hours now. I'm so appreciative of your time always, as Chad. I can't thank you enough. I'm so happy you're doing this, but I also don't want to consume more of your time. Guys, did we have anything else that we want to talk about before we maybe think about wrapping here?
I probably do.
Okay, hey man, go for it.
Let's keep going, Chad. If you want to keep going,
a lot of
yeah,
things
go for it.
Let's go.
So I have two things that I think is kind of fun topics. At least the first one's kind of fun. So this past week I spent a bit more time. If anybody knows, I've been talking about AI a little while, and I'm very bullish in the long term. I started this week actually mucking about with using AI to a few different things I want to use AI for on the THORChain protocol, not inside the protocol, but just like kind of off chain, so to speak. One is I want to see it be actively involved as a developer in an autonomous way. So one is that it's like reviewing PRs and autonomous generation of reviewing PR. That's one of the things I was working on earlier this week and got it somewhat functional. That's one thing. Two is I want to be able for it to create GitLab issues, or even create PRs that address a specific GitLab issue. So you can create GitLab issue, you can assign it to the AI, so to speak, and it will make an effort and open a PR that in theory should address whatever the thing is. That's one other thing I wanted to do. And then the third thing I wanted to do was I wanted to use AI to be an autonomous maintainer of the protocol, or like we would use in our industry, we use the term SRE, which is site reliability engineer. But basically what that is just like it's constantly have an AI that's constantly looking at the protocol, looking at logs, looking at transactions, looking at churns, looking at like just constantly just looking at the protocol all the time and processing the protocol all the time, and then flagging when it sees something weird, maybe there's like a weird error in the logs, maybe there's a stuck transaction that's not being sent, maybe this, maybe that, whatever it is, to autonomously like find it, observe it, document it, create a GitLab issue, and to like notify the rest of the devs that, oh, I just saw this weird thing, blah blah blah, and then provide all the data and information that led to this thing, and then autonomously like create a PR around that GitLab issue that it just created to address whatever that concern is, to do it development in a fully autonomous way, obviously by having devs in the process of it to approve and whatnot. And so like that's something that I think is very exciting to just work on and build, and just to build those kind of rails within the THORChain environment. And then as these like AI models become more intelligent or more effective at doing what they do, this code that I build today, so to speak, may not be 100% useful in today's model A LLM world. But in 2 years, 3 years, whatever whatever the years are, just inserting a new model will just inherently make the system smarter and more effective. And I think like moving THORChain in a direction where AI can be more actively involved in the process, so that we can do more development faster with less resources. And that's really like a fascinating notion from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that's badass. That sounds like a whole other era. It reminds me of the defensive mechanisms of THORChain, like after ChaosNet. The solvency checker. This is like a whole nother primitive that not only helps protect the network, but is proactive in figuring out when things are wrong that the human may not discover until maybe much later, or when something serious happens. So that sounds absolutely badass.
Yeah, I'm excited to work on that when I have the spare cycles to do so. Obviously, I'm working on a lot of things right now, so it's hard to find the time. But that's one of the things I want to work on. And the other thing I've been kind of curious to work on, and I think Slam Banner would be interested in this because he's a node operator, is building like a command line GUI for operators to be able to manage their nodes, to observe them, to see their status, maybe even alerting capabilities, but also be able to bond, unbond, leave, go into maintenance mode, track your the yield that you're producing, how much rune you've collected per churn, and what the value of that is, and then just a bunch of different and then monitoring your daemons and your Kubernetes clusters and your pods and all that stuff. Like, I think it's a very fascinating kind of thing. I also want to kind of poke at some point in the future.
100%. Alerting would, I think, I'm not the only node operator that would be very interested in that.
Yeah, I think alerting is an important thing. And then there's some node operators that seem to be very bad at that. Like, they're not really paying close attention to their node. We've seen that where like we unable to churn for like days or even weeks because some operators kind of fell asleep at the wheel or whatever. So that's something I'm interested in spending more time, because I don't really like I don't really like the idea of using web UIs to manage your node, because web UIs can go away, they can turn off, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, how do I unbond my node or whatever it is, the action you're trying to take, and all of a sudden the UI you use is like not available, and then that just becomes like a problem for the protocol. So I'd rather have an ability to do all those actions locally within your node, so to speak, and you can just run a command to, to unbond or bond or leave or, whatever it is, set your keys or whatever the hell it is, like all those things, so that you can do it completely, like, in a localized fashion without reliance on some UI being available for you at the time.
Yeah, it sounds like good redundancy to me, is what it is, right? Makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I said, lots of things to build. I'm excited to build them. I'm working hard to get all these things delivered as reasonably quickly as possible, with obviously safety in mind, of course. It's just lots of things to be building. I'm excited to get going on it.
Chad, the LLM model using would this be a model that you train, or would you just be using Cloud or something like that, or?
It's using Claude at this moment. I don't think we need to train our own for these specific instances. There are another thing I'm interested in doing, but I haven't started yet, which is building an LLM specifically for, like, as a block explorer, so that you can, instead of going to like runescan.io, for example, you could go to this, LLM based block explorer, where you can go in and like ask a question in plain English and get an answer to your response. That might require fine tuning or even a JAG system to inject dynamic data into your model. But for, like, as a developer or like watching things or whatever, I don't think you would need a custom LLM for that. You can just use the Claude, Sonnet 4.5 that is now, and I'm sure in a year it'll be some other model that's much better. And that will just do everything you want for the most part.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't really have much intellectual to say to that. I think that's a really good idea, and I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, and everyone knows you're a coding savage, and I just love it, man. I'm thinking a little bit like on Kenton's side. I think you're gonna build one thing and then it just leads to the next. And dude, I love it. I mean, THORChain's your baby, Chad. It is, and you're doing such a great job. And thank you. I don't want to be over complimentary. I don't like ass kissing, but I just really appreciate you coming up on these stages and explaining this, because it's just I couldn't figure this out unless I didn't have someone like you who just has such an intimate understanding. So and I know the community appreciates it too. So I'm really looking forward to these continued episodes, because they are so useful. Not only to correct my misunderstandings, but also, sometimes we collectively cook together in real time. And that's so much fun. I love that. I'm addicted to this stuff, man. It's so cool.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man, and I'm fully back into the protocol, and I'm putting all my energy into this. I want to see THORChain succeed, not only just for personal, selfish reasons, but also for the greater community and the greater industry as a whole. So I'm fully dedicated. I'm working hard to get this protocol moving as fast as I reasonably can.
Absolutely, man. And I know everyone here listening is dedicated, and we love this thing. We've been in it together. Everyone's a hardcore veteran in here, and we also have friends in here that I've recently met. Especially, I see a lot of XRP people in here, which is really cool. Hey guys, thank you so much, and I hope you have a better insight of what THORChain is about, and what we're trying to build here, and what it means to not only us but to you and the rest of the world. So love it, man. It's just this is I gotta say, it is a weird thing to have so much fulfillment from software. And this is something that gives me more fulfillment even when I was in the medical industry. Like every day I just feel like we're solving such an incredible problem, and we're really addressing root problems and ultimately transforming the world for better, and not just temporary. It's like some transitory event. This is going to redefine everything. And it just is such the best feeling. I get up every day motivated just to keep with these conversations and keep going and keep learning and to keep educating. So, and I know everyone in here who's been a veteran of THORChain, you feel the same way. Isn't it a great feeling, you guys? Isn't this fun? I mean, sometimes it's stressful as hell and we want to freak out and cry, but you know, this is the coolest journey ever. I have never experienced anything like this in my entire life. And I don't know, like, let's say we ossify, we totally just kick butt and we win. That actually might cause a little existential dread for me, because it's the hunt that gets my juices flowing. You know what I'm saying, you guys? It's the hunt,
Yeah.
not necessarily the kill.
Well, it's there's ups, there's downs, you know, and that's true in entrepreneurship in general. I've been an entrepreneur myself since almost my entire adult life, and I'm, you know, 43 years old today. So I've been around for a long time, and things can get really fucking stressful, and they can become also absolutely amazing and exciting. So you just gotta ride. But that's like totally crypto, isn't it? Like you ride the highs, you ride the lows. You know, you hodl and you get your way through it all.
Yeah, damn right, sir. Absolutely. Go ahead, Kenton or Slambammer.
No, I saw a post the other day, somebody talking about, man, it might have been Bill Ackman or something like that, where he like lost billions of dollars in a trade. He had shareholders suing him. He's going through a divorce. Like all this stuff was just like hammering him all at the same time. And it's like, all you can do is just like every day, just make a bit of progress. And, you know, as long as you just keep stepping forward, you know, one foot after the other, eventually you come out of it. You come out of it, you know, even better than when you got in. So
Yep.
that's what I see THORChain doing this whole year. Well, actually, not just this year, but ever since I've been paying attention. Like, you know, things may not get done as quickly as we all want, but there's still this constant push forward, this constant march of just delivering and shipping and adding. Finn Contrarian put up a great post the other day linking to some report talking about developers that work on blockchains, and they had THORChain. And if you look at the number of developers working on THORChain, it's up. Yeah, there's twice as many full-time developers today than 2 years ago. There's 50% more developers than a year ago. And if you look at those charts, it's like, man, everything's bullish on THORChain from like a development point of view. Number of merge requests and everything, and GitLab, like everything's on trending up. Like this isn't a protocol that's going away or dying. It's one that's continuing to grow. So yeah, it's awesome.
It is
Hundo.
awesome. Yeah. I mean, because when you get in, when you understand what we're building, when you see the vision, it just grabs you, you know, it's just grabs like a face hugger and Alien. It's over. You know what I mean? It's inside of you, and chest burster, but something really cool comes out. I don't know. That was a terrible example, but anyway, it's just, man, you just see the vision and it's all consuming and it's so important. And I could just talk about it all day. I do talk about all day, you know? In fact, I got a date coming up, Kenton. I got a date with a girl. It's gonna be the end of this month, November. And we'll see if she survives the THORChain lecture, buddy. I don't know. THORChain came first. You know what I'm saying?
But is this a girl online, like an AI girl, or is this a girl in real life?
No girls, no animal ears, nothing like that. I've worked with her in the past. You know what I'm saying? This is red-blooded American girl, homegrown type stuff. This is the real deal. Okay.
I love those memes of like, I don't know, a picture or video of like some guy like all stressed, freaking out. It was like, you know, I just finished a first date with the girl, but at least she knows everything about the Illuminati and the cartel and, you know, fiat money is a scam, all this kind of stuff. So funny.
Oh, it's so true, man. So true. Yeah.
Hilarious.
That sucks, dude, because what it is like they ask you, it's like, well, what do you do? Well, I do crypto stuff. What does that mean? All right, sit down, run up pen and piece of paper. Here we go. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to condense. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's like, you gonna tell them like what I'm, you know, part of, we are changing the world. And that just sounds exaggerated. But then, you know, if you break it down, then you bore the hell out of them. What are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see, you guys.
You got to read the room.
Yeah, I know.
See how much they're willing to listen or not listen.
I was also just going to check, Chad, did you say you were 43 today?
Not today, but I'm 40.
Right.
My birthday is in August, but I'm 43 years old in general. I'm an old man.
No, I was just checking whether it was your birthday. That's all.
Not as old as Kenton.
I don't know. Kenton, how old are you?
I have a few years on you. I just turned 46.
Okay, just 3 years older. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that,
You
not
look
that
young
huge.
though, man. You look young. I know we're getting to the noise part, guys, but sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, this is bonding, right? We have a good time. You look young, Kenton, and you too, Chad. I don't
Thank
have
you,
any
sir.
hair on my head, so I look way older than you guys. It's embarrassing. I'm 36.
I did think of something though that Chad really kind of made me start thinking about this. When Chad earlier you mentioned that the institutional investors or traders may want to stay on sexes because they only want to interact with KYC volume, and just sort of made me thinking like, what if 'cause I've noticed this like the total volume on sexes is up this year, and the total volume on THORChain is down, and I'm like, what's the disconnect? And it just makes me wondering, like, is it like if we're adding all these features, doing all these cool things, making things cheaper, faster, efficient, all that, is it really just as simple as, well, the volume isn't coming because it's not KYC and all this stuff? I'm not saying this for nothing, but you know, that is basically the main hurdle we have to get over before we see a flood of volume coming to THORChain. Is that thing will have to change?
Yeah, I think at least the way I perceive it, and actually, Can's in the audience. He probably actually have a better answer to this question than I would. But, and Can, if you want to come up and give an answer, you're welcome to. But I think what's happening is the kind of institutional market is becoming more and more warm to the idea of crypto, in part because of the Trump administration. And
Oh, you rugged, Chad. Oh, he rugged. Is it just me? Can you guys hear him?
No, I can't hear him either. He rugged for me too.
Shoot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the last word he said was Trump administration. So at least we can, if he comes
his head
back,
exploded. He's got TDS. I'm joking, Chad. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Is he there?
Damn, that was a good topic too. Gosh.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come back.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
now.
maybe he dropped like me. I don't feel so bad. But that's what I'm going to post some charts in Discord so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But I keep thinking like, you know, is there a saying or expression like where like we're fixing and doing all these things on this one place, but really our problem is the other place. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is the problem really just the big money can't touch dexes, and that's why it's not trading on THORChain? And it's like really makes you think about it. Like, I'm not saying the features are everything a waste of time, but we just keep improving, making things better, and then when that does change, and that's no longer an issue, and these institutions are trading on dexes, then we have this amazing, incredible product all done, ready. That's been, refined for years, and they can just jump right in and hit the ground running. We could have maybe one day we have a flood of that volume come over to THORChain. I don't know. I hope it's that simple. I think what Chad was trying to, what he was going to start saying is that things are changing, right? With politics in general, that crypto is becoming more mainstream, right? And they're starting to get more relaxed about it, and I don't say relaxed, but just view it more appropriately, right? And I agree. I think that's where we're going, right? So hopefully that the idea of no KYC volume is a thing in the past, doesn't matter anymore, and THORChain can compete on an equal footing with Coinbase and Binance.
Yeah, it's a hard sell because if THORChain is like only selling doing swaps for 10 basis points, right? And it's cheaper to use the THORChain interface, right? swap.thorchain.org. That's a hard sell, I think, for institutional money to choose something that is more expensive to use. Although, right, if it's compulsory, if you need KYC, that is a whole different angle. But that's why I'm really excited about the memoless generator, right? Or interface generator, where people then institutional money almost, that's always going to be a thing, but it really disseminates the ability to swap and to provide this service.
Well, I don't think memoless will change that though. It's not about
Right.
well, maybe I should understand your position a
Utility.
bit better. Yeah, why do you think Bemolis would um, subvert the whole KYC volume thing?
Well, not in the terms of institutional money. That's a separate thing. It just, what it is right now, because the demand's there, man. I'm talking like at the Stone with XRP and various others. They want to have the ability where they can swap tokens on their site, and that way they offer then perks to their customers, right? That was a consultation firm. It's basically like a swap kit esque type situation where the middleman doesn't take hardly anything, right? And that's really cool. And it's super simple, right? Man, we talked about the previous conversation. We have to make it where people can just pick it up and run with it. We can't have a cognitive burden, make it as simple as possible. I think that's very powerful. And people then can offer real layer one swaps with this memless functionality, and then it permeates. I could be wrong about that, but that's what my gut tells me is likely to happen. And then that helps with the volume, total volume, but not necessarily institutional money. I really don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely help with distribution and getting more retail users. But yeah, like the guys with funds, like investment funds that are trying to, do everything by the book. I don't even say by the book, but like just be very like just kind of hit things in the middle of the field, like just a really easy, no risk type thing. Like I'm sure a lot of these funds can trade on THORChain. They don't want to. Like the will just isn't there to, change their offering documents or whatever to make it happen. And or maybe they can do it. They're just still worried about the regulatory environment. Like they're still unsure, right? If something could happen to them, they don't want to take any chances. So they're just trying to, live on easy street. But I got to think that's going to change over time. I mean, like Bitcoin. I mean, they're interacting with no KYC Bitcoin, so like it's
Right.
not right. So just because the person you bought it from doesn't mean that the 5,000 people before it had any KYC, right? So hopefully that starts making more sense to these guys and these regulators.
Yeah, and institutional money like that, it's beyond the scope of my expertise, just full disclosure. But I think it's just pretty hard to ignore margin, right? If you have an alternative that is cheaper and, this KYC regulatory format, if they're losing money on that, then that adds pressure to the incentive to eventually go to DeFi if you're saving money, right? I mean, that's the ultimate incentive. At least I would think. So we'll see. Gosh dang it, guys. I think we lost Chad. Damn it. That happens sometimes. Well, shoot.
Yeah, and he wanted to keep going too, which is great.
Yeah, shout out to him. He's awesome.
Should we give him a few more minutes? I don't know. I can't see our Telegram group. Is he? I don't know if the intern can see him. No,
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll DM him here if you here.
We'll give him a few more minutes. But yeah, that's what I was thinking too with THORChain. If we just keep making things cheaper, faster, better, and there's some players, institutional players, who are using THORChain, who are making money, others are going to see that and want to make money too, right? And they'll come join on the bandwagon. So I think you're totally right, Patriot. Its value proposition just becomes so great, so good. They won't be able to ignore it anyway, and they'll find a way to make it work. Right now, the centralized exchange is probably just easy for them to use. It's still a bit of a hurdle for them to get into DeFi, so maybe that's why. Yeah, we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think the first principles lean in our favor. I always think of just the basic rules, the basic, impulses, the incentives. I think we got it. We just got to keep building, like Chad said, just like you talked about, keep going. And I think the everyone shifts to what makes the most economic sense. And it's security sense too, right? I mean, it's decentralized stuff. And if we get it really running really good, no security exploits. And, I think right now, the custody issues All right, the KYC element, that's really getting traction. People are understanding the unpopularity of that and the risks associated with using these centralized platforms. That's been, I feel like it's only ramping up that narrative. So I think things are looking up.
Well, and to add to that, look at all this stuff that what happened a few weeks ago at Binance with the flash crash. Everyone's, calling out Binance for orchestrating it. I don't know if you guys are following the white whale and the MXC debacle. Apparently, like, everyone's now crapping on MXC, telling get your money off the exchange because they'll screw you, blah blah blah. Like, and this has been going on for years. Like, a lot of people think like centralized exchange has been this necessary evil that people have been using. And I read all these tweets and everything, and I'm like, man, how do we get these people to know about THORChain? And especially like Ruggiero, it's being built with the perp decks and everything. And like, this is the goal of the marketing team, right? Is try and get the message out there to get people to know, because it's THORChain is building everything that solves these people's problems. Like Chad was saying earlier, like THORChain, can't front run you. There's no MEV on THORChain. Right? Everything is honest and legit and real. It's all open. It's all public. There's no, like, the nodes aren't trading against you, basically. So Hans talking about the liquidations. Instead of the liquidations benefiting the protocol, liquidations are going to benefit the users. Like, everything is built and designed with the user in mind. And I gotta think people are going to start recognizing that at some point. So
For sure. I agree. Yeah. It's only a matter of time. We can expedite it with the marketing, of course, and then all the individual actions of everyone listening here. So 100%.
Yeah, by individual actions, that means shit posting. So guys, when you see that stuff on Twitter, just shit post that, hey, come use THORChain, tell people about it. This is how Bitcoin became huge, is Bitcoiners just shit posting about Bitcoin everywhere. So if we have all the THORChads shit posting THORChain everywhere, telling people about it, like, that's way and in addition to marketing, like, we can't lose. But it's so much like that. 1,000 THORChads out there shit posting about THORChain is way more powerful than any amount of money we can spend on marketing. So I hope you don't hear about the marketing team and everything we're doing and think, oh, I don't have to do anything, I can be quiet. No, we need you to continue being active, continue being loud. Fearless and Finn Contrarian, I keep seeing those guys threads. They're bangers. They're awesome. You don't have to do threads, guys. Just do a couple posts, especially when you see that Changelly and Change Now stuff, people's funds getting frozen. Go tell them about THORChain. If you see it on Reddit, tell them about it. And then this also, the more you guys reply, fine, that person might not do anything, but this helps train AI, right? So when these AI models are scrubbing the internet, they're looking for questions and then answers. And so if THORChain keeps coming up as an answer or a solution to all these people's problems, that helps train AI. And again, we're going to spend money on trying to get content out there to do it, but it's so much better when if we have 1,000 people out there posting that same stuff, and in your voice too, right? Doesn't say it however you want to say it, and as much or as little as you want to say. There's no such thing as too much shit posting. So yeah, every individual counts.
Yeah, I'd argue that really the people listening to this, whether it's live or the recording, there are no better marketers than you. Your intimate knowledge, and your history, your understanding of it. I mean, you are at the forefront of this, what's happening, what we're building. And when it's a real person, with a check mark by the name, usually, if you don't have check mark, no big deal. It's just saturation. It's saturating the market with THORChain. And like Kenton said in previous spaces, I think it takes multiple times someone hearing THORChain or Ruggiero or whatever it is before it really clicks and they really get invested, right? And so the more you do it, the more we all do it. It works over time. It's not you don't hear THORChain once and dive right in like nuts. It takes repeated exposure before they
You're
ahead.
absolutely, yeah, you're right. So the study is that somebody has to hear the same thing 5 times before it registers. And I mean, that's how I found THORChain, was just playing around on Twitter, and I kept coming across it and big look, and then I fell down the rabbit hole. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Patriot. It's not necessarily about getting that person in that moment to convert them. You're adding to the pool of THORChain propaganda, basically. And the person you reply to may not do anything, but somebody reading those comments might do something, right? So it all adds and feeds and builds on itself.
And to shout out, I know I've mentioned XRP quite a lot. They are experts at this. They have so many events. They do so many community organizing. They are the ultimate promoters of their own ecosystem. So I've been thoroughly impressed by that. It's why they're like number 4 market cap or number 3, whatever it is right now. They are very good at promoting, and they have a very engaged and active community. Can't hurt, you guys. We can definitely match that. And so, yeah. Well, I don't know if he's going to come back. Maybe he mega rugged. I'm not sure, but maybe we close it here. It's over 2.5 hours. I think it's been a badass space, man. This has been a great one. Gosh dang it. I love these spaces, dude.
Yeah, me too. I agree. That was great. Let's wrap it up. You want to bring us home?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Okay, guys. Not much. We're getting more things organized here, but November 1st, so Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, we're going to have Redacted on, privacy utility on the app layer. Really excited to learn about that. And then the following week, we have Maya Protocol. I've been reaching out to Tron to get them a spot. I've been unable to do that so far. I'm going to keep trying. We have time. If you guys know of any topics or anything like that you want to be discussed, I'm open to ideas. We have 2 spaces lined up, so I definitely want to make that list grow. We've been really hitting it hard with the spaces. I think we've been doing really good. Yeah, guys. So I think that's it. So we'll see you guys Saturday. Thank you, Kenton, very much. I appreciate Slam Bammer. Chad Barraford, of course, thank you so much for your gracious time. We will wrap this thing up. I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.